Maayong hapon, Kapalong West District Teachers. Yes,
Okay,
Miss Ma'am.
maayong hapon. Yes, maayong hapon po, Sir Api. Kumusta ka dira nga side? Okay lang ba ta diha?
Okay ra kayo diri nga side, Ma'am Bam. Bugnaw
Sige.
kayo ang palibot.
Lagi, nadyo ko'y makita nga hamog-hamog dira, sir ba?
Yes.
Okay. So, maayong hapon usab ug welcome sa afternoon session sa atong ikaduha nga adlaw sa District Training of Teachers on the Learning Management System. And before starting this afternoon session, I have some reminders to all our registered participants from our technical team. In filling up the forms po, kindly fill up the needed data completely, your full name, surname, and the given name. And also, make sure po na naselect nyo po ng tama ang school nyo po. Kasi, according po sa ating ICT coordinator is, may naselect po daw na school na hindi naman po daw siya doon na belong. So, kumbaga, nasaag si ma'am ba, nasaag si sir. So, before submitting, please check all the data if tama ba ang na-input na data. Sir Rafi?
Yes, Ma'am Bam. And of course, ato pong ipahinumdum sa atong mga teacher participants na ganinang buntag, we have a lot of technical problems po na na-experience.
Yes, sir.
So, yun,
especially sa imuhang part, sir, no? Nawala
yes,
siya, sir, ba?
yes, Ma'am
Pero-
Bam, from Gabuyan to Luna, then nanapog ko diri dapit sa mga mabugnaw nga dapit. Pero okay lang, pinagtagpo tayong lahat, pero hindi pinagtadhana.
Lagi
Ayan.
ko anday imuhang tirada nimo karon, sir, NPA, no permanent address. Ugma, sir, asa na pud kaya ka?
Asa na pud ka ko ibutang sa Ginoo ni ugma, Ma'am Bam. And of course, we would like to acknowledge the presence of our school or public schools district supervisor, Ma'am Sara Passion Cobar, and also
Okay.
to our school administrators, both elementary and secondary high schools, and also to our very active teacher participants. Good afternoon po and welcome to our afternoon session of this day 2 of 5-day teachers learning management system. Ayan po.
Okay. Sa makausap, maayong hapon. As of this moment, we have 35 people watching us right now. So, kakaunti pa po tayo. So, sa mga nanonood na po, please tell others to start joining na because time is gold. No? And then, so we can proceed to the unpacking of competencies based on the most essential learning competencies. So, a while ago in the morning, natapos na po ang limang subjects. First is the kindergarten. The next one is the multi-grade. And then the Filipino, English, and mathematics. So this afternoon, we are going to resume the other 5 subjects. So please, tell other teachers to start joining na po.
Ayan, Miss Bam. And also, i-remind po natin yung mga teacher participants po natin na yung attendance link po natin is available po anytime. So, take a photo and screenshot of our link. Only our technical working group, yes, knows or kanus-an nila i-gawas ang atong attendance link. Ayan.
Okay, shout out daw sa mga maanyag na mga MC. Salamat kaayo Sir Glenn Timbal. Maanyag kay palabantaan ni sa kahayag sa suga. Kay og walay suga.
Yes, Ma'am Bam. And of course, ako,
mayong buntag Sir Glenn Timbal.
yes.
Maayong hapon, maayong hapon.
Ma'am Bam,
Okay.
okay.
From Ma'am Dina Limos. Yes, sir.
Yes, Ma'am Bam.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so murag nako sa area no nga murag unsa man ni murag kuhaon nako or dili pa siguro. Okay.
Mura na kag simba ko palayo, simba ko. Timing pud
Okay.
kaayo ang suga sa imong uluhan sir ba na sa imong tunga.
Yes.
Simba ko
So,
dun. Okay? From Ma'am
teachers,
Shara Maynil. Good afternoon po. Still watching from Simong National High School. Hello, Ma'am Shara Maynil. Good afternoon. Welcome to our afternoon session. And to all the teachers of Simong National High School, maayong hapon.
ayan, good
Okay,
afternoon
sa
po.
mga viewers natin, you can post your comments because while waiting for the others, we can read your comments. Pa-shout out naman dyan.
Yes. Ma'am Bam, yes Ma'am Bam.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Okay.
remind lang po natin yung mga teacher participants din natin na feel free po sila na mag-ask questions po. No, since
Okay,
this is 5-day training for LMS, so we do hope na marami po silang ma-learn sa ating webinar po ngayon. Ayan.
Okay, so very good po tayo kaninang umaga. Compare kahapon, kasi kahapon walang mga teachers na nag-ask ng mga questions. Habang kanina, napaka-interactive ng discussion, sir, no? Because ang daming nagtanong. And it was answered satisfactorily by our PSDS Minsara Pasyunkubar, along with the other school heads, and of course by our program coordinator, Sir Bayani Escoton. Okay, another
Yes.
shout out from Sir Glenn Timbal. Shout out ko sa mga gwapa ug pinahawd na mga teachers sa Tiburcia Elementary School. Labang langs. Okay. Mga gwapa ug pinahawd na mga teachers sa Tiburcia Elementary School. Okay, shout out. Maayong hapon. How about other schools?
Yes. Shout out lang po. Okay. Feel free po tayo sa ating mga shout out.
Okay, Sir Rafi, we are ready to start na po our afternoon session. Okay,
Yes.
so much for the greetings and reminders. And now, let us move on to the part 2 of the unpacking of competencies based on the most essential learning competencies. For this afternoon, we are still to watch 5 sessions, and these are the competencies for the science, araling panlipunan, edukasyon sa pagpapakatao, and special program in foreign language, EPP, TLE, TVL, and MAPE. Let us welcome here on screen one of the Education Program Supervisors of the Curriculum and Learning Management Division, Dr. Maria Liza I. Berandoy, for the unpacking of competencies in science. Okay. The technical team is still fixing our video because there is no audio. Again, good afternoon, everyone. Attendance link will be posted anytime on your screens, so please be attentive. Okay. Again, if you'd like to post something on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter regarding this webinar on LMS, use our official hashtag #EmbraceLMS, #LMS KapWest, Hashtag Sulong Edukalidad.
Ayan po.
our Assistant Regional Director, Madam Maria Ines Asuncion, our Curriculum and Learning Management Division, Madam Chief Janet Veloso, to our regional training of trainers participants of this webinar on Learning Management System of Region 11. Confronted with so many changes in the Department of Education. But this time, we face an unprecedented threat to the continuity of education because we face an enemy that we cannot see. And so, DepEd, with all its efforts, has tried to restructure its educational system to adapt to this new normal. One of the outcomes of this struggle is the development of the most essential learning competencies, particularly in science, which we will be learning today. And to start with, let me touch a bit of the science framework, as this will be the road leading to the discussion of science competencies. In here, we will be showing the process of how learning competencies were trimmed down to most essential learning competencies, and subsequently the walkthrough of these competencies. For us to learn more about these competencies and what is it for, we have prepared a presentation for you to watch and listen. In this way, we will have a consistent understanding of this content.
Welcome to our orientation on the most essential learning competencies in science for Region 11. This is a reiteration from the National Orientation on the most essential learning competencies in science held last June 2020. Let us begin. K-12 curriculum is learner-centered and inquiry-based, emphasizing the use of evidence in constructions, explanations, concepts, and skills. Physics, chemistry, and earth sciences are presented with increasing levels of complexity from one grade level to another in spiral progression, thus paving the way to a deeper understanding of core concepts. The integration across science topics and other disciplines will lead to a meaningful understanding of concepts and its application to real-life situations. These are the approaches and pedagogy embedded in the science curriculum framework of the K-12 basic education. Multidisciplinary approach, science technology society approach, contextual learning, problem issue-based learning, inquiry-based approach, constructivism, social cognition learning model, learning style theory, and brain-based learning. Every science educator is encouraged to apply the suggested approaches in delivering the best science education to our learners. With the advent of MELCs, we are even highly encouraged to utilize these approaches in embracing the 21st century skills of both learners and teachers. Most of us are already familiar with the learning competencies in science found in every curriculum guide. To name a few, for grade 3, we have a total of 33 LCs. For grade 4, 41. Grade 5, 31. Grade 6, 20. Grade 7, 45. Grade 8, 48. Grade 9, 37. And grade 10, 29. For a total of 200 competencies. This slide shows the number of most essential learning competencies in science. As you may have noticed, the numbers have been reduced. For example, for grade 3, we have 20 LCs. Grade 4, 23. For grade 5, 21. Grade 6, 16. Grade 7, 27. Grade 8, 30. Grade 9, 26. And grade 10, 24. For a total of 187 MELCs. In trimming down the learning competencies to essential learning competencies, the central office followed several guidelines. Each competency is classified as either essential or desirable. Those learning contents that have already been introduced in another grade level were classified as desirable, such as in the case of grade 10, quarter 1, where the competency about describing the internal structure has been already introduced in grade 8. In another case, were trimmed down as the competency preceding it, such as in the case of grade 10, quarter 2. In here, the application of ray diagramming can be fused with the previous competency on predicting characteristics of images. We have here a sample of MELC guide with annotations. As you notice, there are MELCs that do not have a corresponding CG code. A missing code means the MELC is either merged or rephrased. For example, in grade 3, quarter 1, the first competency does not have a code because this competency was rephrased. In quarter 2 of the same grade level, another code was dropped in the MELCs because it has been merged into another competency. Now, let us have a walkthrough of the MELCs. We have here the grade level standards for force and energy and earth and space. Learner can describe how what makes them move. They can also identify sources and describe uses of light, heat, sound, and electricity. Learner can describe changes in the conditions of their surroundings. This would lead them to become more curious about their surroundings, appreciate nature, and practice health and safety measures. Now we'll look into the for this grade level standard in grade 3. In here, we see that the K-12 learning competency was rephrased. The reason was that rather than asking the learners to just list down, they were asked to describe the various uses of light, sound, heat, and electricity. 2 of the LCs has been dropped because of these reasons, written in the last column. Now, of the MELCs, we have here the grade level standard, Earth and Space, for grade 4. In this slide, we see that the first LC was dropped, while 2 LCs were rephrased. The reasons for these changes are reflected in the last column. We have here for force and energy, earth and space, for grade level 5. In this slide, we see that the first drop. So with the last LC, while the second LC was rephrased. The reason for this change is the column of this slide. We have here the standards for force and energy, earth and space, for grade 6. In this slide, we see that the first LC was rephrased and revised, while the second LC was dropped. This reason, the LC was expounded to include effects of both rotation and revolution. It was dropped because this is partly subsumed in the LC manipulate simple machines to describe their characteristics and uses. For junior high school, grade 7, level standards, force and energy, earth and space. Learner can describe the motion of objects in terms of distance and speed and represent this in tables, graphs, charts, and equations. They can describe how various forms of energy travel through different media. Describe what makes up the Philippines as a whole archipelago. They can explain the occurrence of breezes, movement, TZZ, and how they affect people. They can explain why seasons change and demonstrate how eclipses occur. The first LC is being rephrased and revised. The second and the third were dropped due to the following reason. The intention of the LC for the students to discover the wave characteristics that define color and intensity and energy. Moderating forms, bodies of water discussed in AP. The third LC is dropped since it was subsumed in the discussion on the difference between speed and velocity and distance and displacement. This slide shows the grade level standard competency for grade 8 for force and energy, earth and space. The first LC was rephrased, same as the third LC. The second LC was dropped, and the following reasons were reflected in the last column of this slide. In this slide is the grade level standards for grade 9 for force and energy, earth and space. For science grade 9, the first LC was revised. The second and the third were dropped. The reasons: the LC is expounded to include volcanic eruption, which is one way of classifying volcanoes. The second and the third were dropped due to the topic is already subsumed in the discussion about observable constellations on a specific time of the year. Grade 10 level standards, force and energy, earth and space. At the end of grade 10, learners realize that volcanoes and earthquakes occur in the same places in the world and that these are related to plate boundaries. They can demonstrate ways to ensure safety and reduce damage during earthquakes, tsunamis, and volcanic eruptions. Learners can factors affecting the balance and stability of an object to help them practice appropriate positions and movements to achieve efficiency and safety, such as in sports and dancing. They can analyze situations in which energy is harnessed for human use, whereby heat is released. In grade 10, the first and the third LCs were dropped, and the second LC was rephrased. The reason for this are all reflected in the last column of this slide. For grade level standards, domain living things in their environment. At the end of grade 3, the learner can describe the functions of the different parts of the body and things that make up their surroundings, such as rocks and soil, plants and animals. In grade 3, The first LC was rephrased. Describe the parts and function of these organs of the human body. To MELCs, describe the functions of the sense organs of the human body. The reason for this, focus should be on the main function of each sense organ. The parts of the sense organs may be tackled in a much higher grade level. Scientific terms of the parts of the sense organs are not appropriate for their age. Whereas the second competency was dropped. The reason is reflected in the last column. Another LC in Science Grade 3 is dropped. The reason, it will be discussed in Grade 4 EPP. In addition, another LC was dropped for Grade 3 due to all these topics will be covered in Grade 4 EPP. For grade level standard, reflected in this slide. One LC for grade 4 was since it will be there are two merge and turn ELCs. Describe some for the reason that the fusion of the organisms interrelationships. In this method, the grade 5 level standards for living things for grade 5, two of the learning competencies were dropped since it will be covered in grade 5. Here is the standards. Living things. Learners understand how the different parts of the human body work together. Learners can classify plants based on reproductive structures and animals based on the presence or lack of backbone. Learners can decide and conduct an investigation of propagation. Learners can describe larger ecosystems such as rainforests, coral reefs, and mangrove swamps. For Science Grade 6, one LC is dropped since it was covered in Grade 5 competency. For Junior High School, Grade 7 level standards, living things and their environment. After studying how organ systems work together in plants and animals in the lower grade levels, learners can use a microscope when observing very small organisms and structures. Learners recognize that living things into different levels, cells, tissues, organs, organ systems, and organisms. These organisms comprise populations and communities which interact with non-living things in ecosystems. For grade 7, 2 LP since it could be tackled in grade 8 and it was discussed in grade 5. For grade 8 level standards, living things environment is reflected in this slide. In grade 8, only one LC was dropped since it was covered in grade 6, third quarter, and grade 7, health, second quarter. In this slide, grade 9 level standards for the living things in their environment. For Science Grade 9, only one LC was dropped since it was covered in a grade 8 competency. This slide shows the grade 10 level standards on living things in their environment. For grade 10, the 1 LC was dropped since it was covered in grade 8. For the senior high school, core subject description for Earth and Life Science. This learning area is designed to provide a general background for the understanding of Earth science and biology. It presents the history of the Earth through geologic time. It discusses the Earth's structure, composition, and processes. Issues, concerns, and problems pertaining to natural hazards are also included. It highlighted and deals with the basic principles and processes in the study of biology. It covers life processes and interactions at the cellular, organism, population, and ecosystem levels. To name a few, describe classic experiments that model conditions which may have enabled the first plants to evolve. This LC could be subsumed under Science 11 or 12, Living Things, Quarter 2, Week 1, Competency Number 1. Explain the evolving concept of life based on emerging pieces of evidence. Our for sure. Here are the examples of the learning competencies dropped in Earth and Life Science. Reflected here are the LCs dropped due to the following reasons: that it was captured in grade 5. These are the LCs dropped for the Earth and Life Science for the following reasons. Reflected in this slide are the LCs dropped for Earth and Life Science due to the reason that it was covered in grade 10. A sample of LC drop for Earth and Life Science because it was captured in junior high school. Another LC drop due to the reason that it was captured in grades 5 to 7. For senior high school, General Biology 1 and 2. Biology 1. This subject designed to enhance the understanding of principles and concepts in the study of biology, particularly life processes at the cellular and molecular levels. It also covers the transformation of energy in organisms. Biology 2. This subject is designed to enhance the understanding of the principles and concepts in the study of biology, particularly heredity and variation, and the diversity of living organisms, their structure, function, and evolution. For Biology 1, 6 elements. An example of this: discuss crossing over and recombination in meiosis. Melts describe the stages of mitosis and meiosis, given n equals 6. For the reason, subsume in STEM Bio 1112 with this code. Here are the other LCs dropped for biology. For biology 2, there are 4 LCs were dropped due to it is covered in grade 8, in grade 9, and in grade 10. As well as there are 2 LCs were merged into one MELTS. And that is, explain how some organisms maintain steady internal conditions such as temperature regulation, osmotic balance, and glucose levels that possess various structures and processes. For grade 3 domain matter, they can classify these things as solid, liquid, or gas, Learners can describe changes in the conditions of their surroundings. This would lead learners to become more curious about their surroundings, appreciate nature, and practice health and safety measures. For grade 3, two LCs were dropped, one retained in MELS, for the reason that the LC had already been introduced partly in earlier grades, and students to classify objects based on observable characteristics similar to the retained. This can form part of an activity to reinforce the LC. In this slide, grade 4 level standard domain matter is reflected. For science grade 4, two LCs were dropped for the reason that it is subsumed in grade 6 health. In this slide, shows the grade level standards for grade 5 matter. For science grade 5, only one LC was dropped. It is because it is subsumed in the LC, design a product out of local recyclable solid and or liquid materials in making useful products. This slide reflects the grade 6 level standard. For science grade 6, two LCs were retained, two rephrased to MELCs, and one LC dropped. For the reason that revised to require the learner to describe the various separation techniques, which requires a higher level cognitive demand than just recognizing them. The LC was dropped. This can be learned along with the second LC, as learners are directed to describe various separation techniques. Grade 7 level standards matter. At the end of grade 7, learners can distinguish mixtures from substances through semi-guided investigation. They realize the importance of fair testing when conducting investigations. For grade level 7, all for grade 8 matter, learners can explain the behavior of matter in terms of the particles it is made of. They recognize that and medical products are made up of this part and absorbed by the body in the form of ion. One to retain in science grade 8 for the reason that LC can be merged with the succeeding LC as students are directed to make use of the periodic table to determine the properties of elements. Matter. Learning materials are formed when atoms are rearranged. They recognize that a wide variety of useful compounds may arise from such rearrangement. Science grade 9. One LC was dropped, LCs were merged, and all the reason were reflected in the last column of this slide. For grade level 10 standards matter, learners can explain the importance of controlling the conditions under which a chemical reaction occurs. They recognize that cells and tissues of the human body are made up of water, a few kinds of ions, and biomolecules. These biomolecules may also be found in the food they eat. For grade 10, one LC was rephrased. Here, in this slide, reflects the melts and the reason of rephrasing. For senior high school general 2, composition, structure, and properties of matter, quantitative principles, kinetics, and energetics of transformations of matter, and fundamental concepts of organic chemistry. For general chemistry 1, 5 LCs were dropped and 2 LCs rephrased. The following reasons are all slides. Here is the list of the competency dropped and rephrased in General Chemistry 1. In General Chemistry 2, 3 LCs were dropped and 2 LCs rephrased. All the reasons are reflected in this slide. This slide shows the rephrase and drop competency, and all reasons are reflected in the last column of this slide. Core subject description: physical science. Evolution of our understanding of matter, motion, electricity, magnetism, light, and the universe from ancient times to the present. Applications of physics and chemistry concepts in contexts such as atmospheric phenomena, cosmology, astronomy, medical instrumentation, space technology, drugs, sources of energy, pollution, recycling, fitness and health, and cosmetics. For physical science, learning competencies were dropped for the reason that the basic concepts are already taught in junior high school. This slide shows the dropped competencies, and the reasons are all reflected in the last column of this slide. Senior high school earth science. This learning area is designed to provide a general background for the understanding of the earth on a planetary scale. It presents the history of the earth through geologic time. It discusses the earth's structure and composition, the processes that occur beneath and on the earth's surface, as well as issues, concerns, and problems pertaining to earth. For earth and space, 3 LCs were dropped for the reasons that the same concept is already introduced in Araling Panlipunan, and the topic had been discussed extensively in Science Grade 8 and 10 in the junior high school, respectively. Junior high school DRRR. This course focuses on the application of scientific knowledge and the solution of practical problems in a physical environment. It is designed to bridge the gap between theoretical science and daily living. For the senior high school science, 3 LCs were dropped for the reason the concept is subsumed in the discussion of exposure to hazards and being introduced in Science Grade 6 and subsumed in the prior LC where discusses various volcano hazards. For General Physics 1 and 2, Physics 1, Mechanics of Particles, Rigid Bodies and Fluids, Waves, and Heat and Trigonometry, Graphical Analysis, and Basic Calculus. For Physics 2, Electricity and Magnetism, Optics, the Basics of Special Relativity, Atomic and Nuclear Phenomena, using the methods and concepts of algebra, geometry, trigonometry, graphical analysis, and basic calculus. This slide shows the drop competencies for General Physics 1, and all the reasons are reflected in the last column of this slide. For General Physics 2, 6 LCs were dropped for the reason that this assumed in the prior LC where discusses electrostatic charging. Ohm's law is already introduced in grade 6, and there is no sufficient laboratory equipment provided yet to schools to carry out the activity. Now let us look on how to use the MELCs. But we must remember that MELCs are the same LCs, but only trimmed down. We have three things to consider. First, melts must be unpacked because they are broad statements. Second, melts must be aligned to the content standards and performance standards of the science curriculum. And lastly, time allocation for targeting of the melts must be flexible. Here, let us look at the grade 8 for melts. Time allocation, week 2 to 3. For the content standard, the learners demonstrate understanding of work using constant force, power, gravitational potential energy, kinetic energy, and elastic potential energy. We will consider the performance standard. The learner should be able to develop a written plan and implement a Newton's Olympics. And for the melts, identify and explain the factors that affect potential and kinetic energy. Here are melt to learning objectives. A. Define and differentiate potential and kinetic energy. B. Identify the factors that affect potential energy. C. Determine the mathematical variation between potential energy and mass and height from the ground. D. Compare the values of potential energy of varying masses at the same elevation from the ground. Letter E. Identify the factors that affect kinetic energy. F. Determine the mathematical variation between kinetic energy and mass and velocity. G. Create and explain a concept map involving the terms kinetic energy, potential energy, mass, velocity, and elevation. And last, demonstrate and explain the law of conservation of energy using a pendulum. As reflected, the sample and pack melts to learning objectives directly responds to the content standard of the science curriculum and performance standard. As reflected in the yellow box, response to the content standard demonstrate understanding of potential energy, kinetic energy, and that is explicitly reflected in learning objectives letter A to letter G. And the second one, allowing students to manipulate a pendulum would help the students prepare for the performance standard plan for Newton's Olympic, and it is reflected in objective letter H.
Part, I would like to summarize some key points in this orientation of the most important learning competencies. First, the key stage and grade level standards are retained. Second, the most essential learning competencies are not departures of the K-12 basic education science curriculum. Third, it retains the same vision of developing scientific, technological, environmental literacy. Last, the learning competencies were trimmed down to the most essential competencies. In the end, according to Hans A. Bethe, we need science education to produce scientists, but we need it equally to create literacy in the public. Thank you so much, and I hope we have a clear understanding of the importance of the most essential learning competencies in this new normal. I also hope that we can make the best out of our learners during these trying times. Good luck and God bless us all. Mabuhay tayong lahat.
And that was Dr. Maria Lisa I. Birandoy for the science competencies. Okay pa ba tayo dyan, mga ma'am? This is the most challenging time of the day. So, I know ang iban katulog na din. Diba? At this at most for the early competency, let us welcome on screen one of the education program supervisors of the Curriculum and Learning Management Division, Dr. Danilo R. Duhino. Controller, please. Again, while waiting for Dr. Danilo Duhino, uh, I would like to suggest
Gayon din sa aming
controller,
assistant
please.
is si Asuncion, CESO 5. Sa aming jefe, si Dr. Janet J. Ruidoso para sa Curriculum and Learning Management Division. Gayon din sa Bureau of Curriculum Development, kay Dr. Rosalie Masila, salamat sa kopya tungkol sa pinakamahalagang pamantayan sa pagkatuto. Gayon din sa kanyang mga specialist. Higit sa lahat, magandang araw sa mga kasamahan ko sa Araling Panlipunan. Gayon din sa ating mga guro sa Rehiyon 11. Ang tatalakayin natin sa araw na ito ay kung paano binuo ang pinakamahalagang pamantayan sa pagkatuto sa Araling Panlipunan o mas kilala sa acronym na MELC o MEL. Tingnan natin ang naging kasaysayan sa pagkabuo ng MEL sa Araling Panlipunan. Una, nagkaroon ng curriculum review. Ang ating mga dalubhasa ay tiningnang maigi ang curriculum mula sa elementarya hanggang sa sekundarya. Pinag-aralan ang curriculum guide, gayon din ang curriculum standard, kung saan napapaloob ang learning competencies. Mula sa learning competencies, nabuo ang essential learning competencies. At mula naman sa essential learning competencies, nabuo ang most essential learning competencies. Ano-ano nga ba ang mga basihan sa pagkabuo ng most essential learning competencies? Una, kailangan na ang learning competency na ito ay panghabang buhay. Kinakailangan din na ito ay buo, malinaw, at may malawak na kaalaman. Higit sa lahat, ito ay naaayon sa pamantayang pangnilalaman at pamantayan sa pagganap. Bakit nabuo ang MELCs o yung tinatawag nating pinakamahalagang pamantayan sa pagkatuto? Una, upang matulungan ang mga guro na matukoy ang mahahalagang pamantayang pampagkatuto upang sa gayon ay mabigyan ito ng prioridad. Pangalawa, maging batayan sa kanilang mga desisyong instruksyonal at hindi upang palitan ang kasalukuyang curriculum guide. Tingnan natin ang kabuang bilang ng pamantayang pampagkatuto sa Araling Panlipunan mula grado 1 hanggang 10. Sa kasalukuyan, mayroon tayong tinatawag na 253 na most essential learning competencies. Ang most essential learning competencies ay mula sa 336 na tinatawag natin essential learning competencies. Ito naman ay galing sa 5 na mga learning competencies mula sa ginagamit natin na curriculum. Mula sa 107 patungong essential learning competencies na 336, mayroong 171 na learning na nawala, hindi kaya isinamang sa ibang learning process o binago. Mula naman sa 300 nakita lamang tayo ngayon ng 200 nasaan ang 88 na essential learning competencies. Ito ay posibleng inalis din o di kaya isinama sa kapwa essential learning competencies. Tingnan naman natin ang isa pang datos kung saan ipinakita ang pagbabago ng mga learning competencies patungong most essential learning competencies sa bawat taon. Halimbawa, sa unang taon o sa unang grado, noon mayroong 63 na mga learning competencies mula sa curriculum guide. Ngunit binawasan ito o di kaya tinanggal o pinag-isa para mabuo ang tinatawag nating essential learning competencies. Mula sa 63, naging 31 na lamang ito. Pero, naging 29 pa nang mabuo natin ang most essential learning competencies. Sa makatuwid, may dalawang essential learning competencies na pinag-isa at tinanggal. Ito naman ay saring datos na nagpapakita sa porsyento ng mga learning competencies at essential learning competencies na nabago, naisama at natanggal. Halimbawa, sa paitang 1, ang current learning competencies natin ay 63 at ang essential learning competencies natin ay 31. Sa kasalukuyan, mayroon tayong 29 pero tinatawag natin itong most essential learning competencies. Sa makatuwid, mula sa learning competencies patungong essential learning competencies, mayroon tayong 50.79% na mga learning competencies na nawala o napasama. Gayon din sa essential learning competencies patungong most essential learning competencies na kung saan mayroon tayong 3.18 na porsyento na mga competencies na nawala o napasama. Ano-ano nga ba ang mga pananda upang pag-isahin natin, tanggalin, o di kaya maiba ang anyo ng ating mga learning competencies? Pag sinasabi nating retain, itinuturing na essential ang learning competency. Kaya hindi nirevisa o nananatili sa dati nitong anyo o artikulasyon tulad ng makikita natin sa K-12 curriculum guide. Pag sinasabi naman nating merge, ang mga learning competencies na ito ay magkakaugnay, magkakahilintulad o bahagi ng isang paksa na pinag-isa na lamang sa pamamagitan ng pagbuo ng panibagong learning competency. Kung i-rephrase naman natin, ito ay sumailalim sa pagpapalit ng learning verb o di kaya ng salita o grupo ng mga salita upang gawing tiyak, malinaw at komprehensibo ang naturang competency. Kapag ito ay sabsub, magkakaugnay, magkakahalintulad o bahagi ng isang paksa na ipinagpapalagay na nakapadulood sa nag-iisang independent na competency. Kung ito naman ay tinanggal, ang ibig sabihin nito, hindi Hindi isinama sa ibang uri ng competency dahil ito ay hindi esensyal at ang pagtatanggal dito ay halos walang epekto sa pagkakamit ng pamantayang pangnilalaman at pagganap. Upang mas lalo natin maintindihan kung bakit pinag-isa ang magkakaparehong mga learning competencies at mabuo ang most essential learning competencies, gayon din ang ugnayan ng most essential learning competencies sa tinatawag nating pamantayan sa pagkatuto, pamantayan sa nilalaman o di kaya sa pagganap. Tingnan natin ang ilan sa mga halimbawa mula sa elementarya. Makikita natin sa unang markahan para sa grado 1, ang content standard o ang pamantayang pangnilalaman ay naipamamalas ang pag-unawa sa kahalagaan ng pagkikilala o pagkilala sa sarili bilang Pilipino gamit ang konsepto ng pagpapatuloy at pagbabago. Sa makatuwid, sa ilalim ng pamantayang pangnilalaman ito, ang mga mag-aaral ay kinakailangang mapahalagan niya ang kanyang sarili pagkatapos ng unang markahan. Sa ilalim naman ng pamantayan sa pagganap, ang mag-aaral ay may buong pagmamalaking nakapagsasalaysay ng kwento tungkol sa sariling katangian at pagkakakilanlan bilang Pilipino sa malikhaing pamamaraan. Sa pamantayan sa pagganap, kinakailangan na ang mga mag-aaral ay may bahagi nila sa iba ang kanilang katangian bilang mga Pilipino sa iba't ibang pamaraan. Mula sa content standard at performance standard, ang Learning Competency 7 ay isinama na sa Learning Competency 6. Bakit? Dahil halos magkakapareho lamang ito. Ang Learning Competency 7 at Learning Competency 6 ay tumutukoy sa pagkatao ng isang mag-aaral na kung saan siyang binibigyang diin natin sa pamantayang pangnilalaman at pamantayan sa pagganap. Para sa ikalawang taon, sa ikalawang markahan, alam natin na ang ating tinatawag na pamantayang pangnilalaman ay naipamamalas ang pag-unawa sa kwento ng pinagmulan ng sariling komunidad batay sa konsepto ng pagbabago at pagpapatuloy at pagpapahalaga sa kulturang nabuo ng komunidad. Ang tinatawag naman nating pamantayan sa pagganap ay nauunawaan ang pinagmulan at kasaysayan ng komunidad. Gayon din, nabibigyang halaga ang mga bagay na nagbago at nananatili sa pamumuhay sa komunidad. Sa ilalim nito, kinakailangang mapahalagahan ng mga mag-aaral ang mga bagay sa kanilang komunidad. Kung kaya't, pinag-isa ang tatlong learning competencies. Ano-ano ang mga ito? Ang Learning Competency 4 at Learning Competency 3 ay pinag-isa sa Learning Competency. Bakit? Dahil halos magkakapareho itong tumutukoy sa pinagmulan ng komunidad. Dumako naman tayo sa ikatlong grado. Halimbawa, sa ikatlong markahan. Ang ating pamantayang pangnilalaman ay naipamamalas ang pag-unawa at pagpapahalaga sa pagkakakilanlang kultural ng kinabibilangang rehiyon. Ang ating pamantayan sa pagganap ay nakapagpapahayag ng may pagmamalaki at pagkikilala sa nabubuong kultura ng mga lalawigan sa kinabibilangang rehiyon. Sa makatuwid, sa ilalim nito, ang mga mag-aaral sa ikatlong grado ay dapat maunawaan nila at maipakita sa iba ang mga nakagisnang kultura nila, mga kultura na nakuha at namana nila mula sa kanilang rehiyon, ang rehiyon ng Davao. Dahil dito, ang 5 competencies ay naging isa. Itong nailalarawan ang pagkakakilanlang kultura ng sariling lalawigan, na isa-isa ang mga pangkat ng mga tao sa sariling lalawigan at rehiyon, nakapagbibigay ng mga halimbawang salita mula sa mga wika at dialekto sa sariling lalawigan at rehiyon. Gayon din ang nailalarawan ang mga kaugalian, paniniwala at tradisyon ng sariling lalawigan at ng rehiyon ay may pari-parihong tinutumbok. Kung kaya't, maaari na itong gawing isahan at ito ay ang nailalarawan ang pagkakakilanlang kultural ng kinabibilangang rehiyon. Dumako naman tayo sa ika-4 na grado. Halimbawa, sa unang markahan, alam natin na ang pamantayang pangnilalaman ay naipamamalas ng ating mga mag-aaral ang konsepto ng bansa. Gayon din ang pag-unawa sa pagkakakilanlan ng mga bansa ayon sa mga katangiang geographical gamit ang mapa. Ang pamantayan sa pagganap naman ay naipaliliwanag ng mga mag-aaral na ang Pilipinas ay isang bansa. Gayon din ang kasanayan sa paggamit ng mapa sa pagtukoy ng iba't ibang lalawigan at rehiyon. Dahil dito, kinakailangang manatili ang ating unang learning competency na mula pa sa curriculum guide. Dahil natumbok na niya ang ating pamantayang pangnilalaman, gayon din ang ating pamantayan sa pagganap. At ang competency na natutukoy sa mapa ang kinalalagyan ng bansa sa rehiyong Asya at gayon din sa mundo ay hindi na kinakailangan dahil maaaring makamit na ang kasanayang gusto nating makamtan ng ating mga mag-aaral sa unang competency. Dumako naman tayo sa grade 5. Halimbawa, sa unang markahan, ang pamantayang pangnilalaman, gayon din ang pamantayan sa pagganap ay maaari nang matutupok ng ating learning competency na natatalakay ang paglaganap ng relihiyong Islam sa ibang bahagi ng bansa. Dapat tandaan natin na ang learning competency na nailalarawan ang lokasyon ng Pilipinas sa mapa ay hindi na masyadong mahalaga dahil maaaring makamtan pa rin natin ang pamantayang pangnilalaman, gayon din ang pamantayan sa pagganap sa iba pang mga dating competency. Sa grade 6, ganun din. Alam natin na ito lamang ang dapat mabuo sa ating mga mag-aaral, ang pag-unawa at kaalaman sa Pilipinas. Sa ilalim ng pamantayan sa pagganap, kinakailangan lamang na mapapahalagan ng ating mga mag-aaral ang kontribusyon ng ating bansa sa daigdig o di kaya sa ating mundo. Kung kaya, natumbok na ng learning competency number 4 at ito ay natatalakay ang partisipasyon ng mga kababaihan sa Rebolusyong Pilipino. Kaya, maaari nang tanggalin ang dati nating learning competency na nasa bilang una. Dumako naman tayo sa sekundarya. Sa sekundarya, mayroon itong 81 na mga learning competency mula sa curriculum guide. Para sa grade A, mayroon itong 43 na mga learning competency. Sa grade 9, mayroon itong 82 na mga learning competencies, gayon din sa grade 10 na umabot sa 42. Ngunit dahil sa ating naharap ngayon sa COVID-19, nabawasan o di kaya pinagsanib ang halos magkakaparehong learning competencies. Kung kaya't ang naging resulta ay umabot lamang sa 43 mula 81. Sa grade 8, mayroon na lamang tayong 31 mula 43. Sa grade 9, mayroon na lamang tayong 62 mula 82 at 31 mula 42. Ngunit, nagkaroon muli ng panibagong learning competency na tinatawag nating most essential learning competency. Kung kaya't nabawasan muli ang ating mga essential learning competencies. Sa kasalukuyan, ang baitang 7 ay mayroon na lamang 30 learning competencies na tinatawag natin ngayong most essential learning competencies. Sa grade 8, mayroon na lamang tayong 24 na learning competencies na tinatawag natin most essential learning competencies. Gayon din sa grade 9 na umabot na lamang sa 26 at grade 10 na umabot na lamang sa 17. Tingnan natin ang ilan sa mga halimbawa ng mga learning competencies na pinagsanib, pinag-isa, tinanggal, or nananatili ayon sa mga nabanggit kong batayan. Sa grade 7, ang pamantayang pangilalaman ay naipamamalas ng mag-aaral ang pag-unawa sa ugnayan ng kapaligiran, pinaunang kabiasnang ASEAN. Sa makatuwid, sa ilalim ng grade 7, dapat mabuo lamang sa isipan ng ating mga mag-aaral na may kaugnayan ang tao at ang kanilang paligid sa paghubog ng sinaunang kabiasnang Asyano. Sa ilalim ng pamantayan sa pagganap, kinakailangan na napag-uugnay-ugnay ng ating mga mag-aaral ang ginampanan ng kapaligiran at tao sa paghubog ng sinaunang kabiasnang Asyano. Dahil dito, tinanggal ang learning competency na nakakagawa ng pangkalahatang profile ng geografiya ng Asya. Bakit? Dahil maaari na itong isama sa unang competency natin na naipapaliwanag ang konsepto ng Asya tungkol sa paghahating geograpiko. Ito ay tumutukoy sa ating kapaligiran. Gayon din ang learning competency 8 na kung saan naipapahayag ng ating mga mag-aaral ang kahalagahan ng pangangalaga sa timbang na kalagayang ekonomiko ng rehiyon. Sa learning competency na ito, may pakikialam na ang tao at isa ito sa mga humuhubog sa pagkakaroon ng kabiasnan o pagbabago. Gayon din sa grade 8 na kung saan ilan sa mga dating learning competencies ay pinag-isa. May nananatili at mayroon namang binago. Sa grade 9 ay gayon din. Mula sa content standard at performance standard, may mga pinag-isang learning competencies. Kagaya ng nakita natin sa una, pangalawa, pangatlo, at pang-apat na bilang. Dahil halos magkakapareho lamang ito, kaya maaring mabuo ang nag-iisang learning competence. Sa grade 10, dapat lamang bibigyang diin ng ating mga mag-aaral na kinakailangan malaman nila ang kahalagahan at ang kanilang pakikilahok sa mga gawaing pansibiko tungo sa pagkakaroon ng pamayanan at bansang maunlad, mapayapa at may pagkakaisa. Dahil dito, ilan sa mga competencies natin ay pinag-isa para naman mapaikli ang bilang ng mga tatahaking competency. Mula sa sekundarya, dumako naman tayo sa senior high school sa core specialized subjects. For grade 11, ang content standard ay kinakailangang ma-demonstrate ng ating mga mag-aaral ang kanilang understanding sa social differences, social change, at political identities. Ganon din ang significance ng culture, society, and politics. At ang rationale for studying anthropology, political science, and sociology. Para matubog natin ito, kinakailangang i-rephrase na lamang ang ating pangalawang learning competencies. At ang unang learning competencies ay pwedeng hindi na ito gagamitin ng ating mga guro. Dahil sa pangalawang learning competency na kung saan binago lamang natin ang anyo para maging most essential learning competency, ay matutulungan na ang sumunod na mga learning competencies para maisakatuparan ang minimiti nating layunin na mabuo sa isipan ng ating mga mag-aaral. Sa grade 12 naman, binibigyang diin lamang dito ang konteksto at ang iba't ibang relihiyon na kung saan sa ilalim ng performance standard, dapat ang ating mga mag-aaral ay maipakita lamang nila na naimpluwensyahan ng relihiyon ang kanilang mga gawi o di kaya ang kanilang mga kultura. Kung kaya, maaari na itong makamtan sa pamamagitan ng pagsasanib sa ilan sa mga learning competency na be aware that Islam upholds 5 pillars, know about the life of Prophet Muhammad, and accept Islam practices with an eye of respect. Sa pamamagitan ng pagbabagong anyo ng ikalawang competency, matutulungan na ang ikatlong competency para mabuo ang konteksto ng iba't ibang relihiyon. Sa makatuwid, hindi na kinakailangan pang manatili ang unang learning competency. Paano gagamitin ang most essential learning competencies sa pagtuturo? Alam ko na alam ng ating mga guro na may mga most essential learning competency na hindi maaaring ituro sa ating mga mag-aaral sa loob ng 2 araw. Ito ang dahilan kung bakit gumagawa ang ating mga guro ng tinatawag nating learning objectives. O kinakailangang i-unpack ng ating mga guro ang most essential learning competency para mahimay-himay nila ang most essential learning competency. sa pagkakaroon ng iba't ibang layunin sa kanilang pagtuturo mula sa most essential learning competencies, matuturuan natin ang ating mga guro na mapaganda nila ang kanilang pagtuturo at madaling makuha ang ninanais nilang kasanayang mabuo sa ating mga mag-aaral. Isa rin itong halimbawa na kung saan ang most essential learning competency ay hinimay-himay ng mga dalubhasa at ito ang tinatawag nating learning objectives. Gayun din sa learning competency na nasasabi ang batayang impormasyon tungkol sa sarili, pangalan, magulang, karawan, edad, tirahan, paaralan, at iba pang pagkakakilanlan at mga katangian bilang mga Pilipino. Ang learning competency na ito ay malawak at hindi maaring ituro sa ating mga mag-aaral sa loob ng isang aral. Kung kaya't, para mas lalong maintindihan ng ating mga mag-aaral o makikita ng ating mga mag-aaral ang kahalagahan ng competency na ito, kinakailangan nating i-unpack o magkakaroon tayo ng mga learning objectives. Ang sumunod ay isang halimbawa ng DLL. Ipinakita dito kung paano bumuo ang isang guro ng objective o paano na-unpack ng isang guro ang most essential learning competency. Muli, ginawa ng guro ang pagkakaroon ng objective o layunin dahil ang most essential learning competency ay hindi maisasagawa sa loob lamang ng isang aral o posibleng hindi makikita ng ating mga mag-aaral ang kahalagahan ng learning competency na ito. Kinakailangan himay-himayin kapag ang most essential learning competency ay masyadong malawak. Muli, para sa ating mga guro, dapat lang natandaan natin na ang ating ginagawa ay para sa ating mga mag-aaral. Nabuo ang pinakamahalagang pamantayan sa pagkatuto para sa araling panlipunan para mapanatili nating maibigay o magkakaroon ng sapat na kasanayan ang ating mga mag-aaral kahit na hinaharap natin ang COVID-19 sa kasalukuyan. Mga guro, tulungan ninyo ako para maging maganda at mapapahalagahan ng ating mga mag-aaral ang kanilang kasaysayan o ang kanilang lipunan. Tandaan, mahalaga ang gampanin ng araling panlipunan sa paglikha ng lipunang aral na siyang pinapangarap nating maging lipunang iran sa bansang Pilipinas. Mahal natin ang Pilipinas. Mahal natin ang Pilipino. Magtulungan tayo. Maraming salamat.
Ayan po. So, Duhinog, maraming salamat po, sir. Kami po'y tutulong sa inyo at we will embrace the new normal. Ayan po. Dr. Danelo R. Duhinog para sa Araling Panlipunan na Curriculum. It's raining outside. Hopefully, hindi po magda-down yung ating connection sa ngayon. Anyways, moving on for the most essential learning competencies in education or edukasyon sa pagpakatao and special program in foreign language. Let us welcome on screen one of the education program supervisors of the Curriculum and Learning Management Division, Department of Education, Region 11. Let us all welcome on screen Dr. Maria Shelo D. Estrada. Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon po.
Okay, so we have just heard the discussion of Dr. Domino on the MELS in Aral Pan. My task is to present to you the MELS in Edukasyon sa Pagpapakatao, and based on the session guide which was provided to us, this is the flow of this presentation. The first part is the presentation of the conceptual framework of the Edukasyon sa Pagpapakatao, to be followed by the walkthrough of ESP MELS. Within this walkthrough of the ESP MELS, ay yung mga paraan ng pagpili ng MELS, paano gamitin ang MELS, pagtalon sa MELS sa bawat key stage, and then to be followed by the third part, which is the unpacking of competencies, and the fourth part are the parts of a lesson exemplar. Okay, but before I'll proceed, let me first acknowledge the support of our Regional Director, Dr. Evelyn Arfe Calvero, our Assistant Regional Director, Dr. Maria Ines Asuncion, and then our CLMD Chief, Dr. Janet Veloso, and to all men and women in DepEd Regional Office 11 who made this meaningful session possible. Good day to all of you. So here are the objectives of this 40-minute presentation. So pagkatapos ng sesyon, inaasahang ang mga kalahok ay nakapagpapaliwanag ng mga batayang konseptual ng ESP, tamang paggamit ng mga MELS sa pagtuturo, pagkatuto, or the teaching learning tungo sa mabisang pagpapadaloy ng mga aralin sa ESP sa batayang edukasyon, mga suggested steps in unpacking the learning competencies, and mga bahagi ng lesson exemplar, and maybe the most important objective is for the participants na maibahagi ang mga natutunan sa mga kaguruan ng ESP sa kanilang mga SDOs. Okay. Ano po ba yung mga inaasahang outcome? If we have those objectives, we will be expecting some meaningful outcomes after this. These are its expected outcome. The first one is the immediate outcome, which is yung mga kalahok na nakapagpapaliwanag ng malinaw ng paggamit ng mga MEL sa mga pagsasanay at block or the learning action cell sessions tungo sa mabisang pagpapadaloy ng mga aralin sa ESP. The next outcome is the enabling outcome. Ito yung mga gurong tagapagpadaloy sa mga na may commitment sa pag-aplikla ng pagtuturo ng ESP sa mga MEL ayon sa konteksto at yugto ng pag-unlad ng mga mag-aaral. And then the final outcome, mga mag-aaral na nagpapamalas ng mga kaalaman, pag-unawa, kasanayan at pagpapahalaga mula sa mga MEL at mga tumuhi ng ESP asignatura. We know that everything that we are doing in DepEd will surely be redounding or with that objective of having it redound to the benefit of all our learners. So yun siya. Okay. And then as mentioned earlier, this is the flow of this presentation. The first is the conceptual framework, then walkthrough, and then the unpacking of competencies and the parts of the exemplar. And now, in the past presentation, we've known and we've seen that that are happening in this department right now is because of the COVID-19 pandemic. It is anchored on the premise that we will be exhausting our human capital if we will stop educating our people, if we are going to stop our education system, all our human resource, our human capital, the human capital of this country will be exhausted. So what could be the role of the ESP during this pandemic? There have been scenarios that we've heard, even to the extent of putting aside the ESP and just focus on the other core subjects. Such could not be done because we also need to educate the hearts of our learners. We need to educate them. Ang edukasyon sa isip na hindi nagbibigay edukasyon sa puso ay tunay na edukasyon. I hope you will agree with me on that. Okay? And then, ang ESP bilang asignatura is teaching our human capital on how to become human. Nagbibigay ito ng edukasyon sa pagiging ganap na tao. Ito ay tumutulong sa paglikha ng pagkasino ng tao tungo sa pagbuo ng sarili. Sa pagtatalaga lamang ng sarili sa kanyang kapwa, mabubuo ang sarili. Kaya ang pagpapakatao ay pakikipagkapwa. So here comes the target outcome ng ESP. Ito yung tunguhin ng ESP. Isang kabataang Pilipino na nagpapasya at kumikilos ng mapanagutan tungo sa kabutihang panlahat. Okay? Taglay ito ng isang mag-aaral kung mayroon siyang mga kakayahang pangkaalaman, pandamdamin at pangkaasalan na magbibigay sa kanya ng kakayahan upang mamuhay at magtrabaho, palinang ang kanyang mga potensyal, magpasya ng mapanuri at batay sa impormasyon, makakilos ng epektibo sa lipunan at pamayanan sa konteksto ng sandaigdigan upang mapabuti ang uri ng kanyang pamumuhay at ng kanyang lipunan. These have been issued in the September 1997 Literacy Coordinating Council. So sa pagtatalaga lamang ng sarili sa kanyang kapwa, mapubuo ang sarili, kaya ang pagkatao ay pakikipagkapwa. Okay? Ipinatay ang kahulugan at ang 5 palatandaan nito sa 4 na batayan or pillars of education at sa konsepto ng UNESCO tungkol sa mga panghabangbuhay na kakayahan or life skills na binubuo or binuo ng International Commission ng Education para sa 21st century. Ang sumusunod ang 5 palatandaan nito. May kakayahang makipagtalastasan, nag-iisip ng mapanuri at may kakayahang lumutas ng suliranin, ginagamit ang mga likas na yaman ng mapanagutan para sa susunod na salinlahi, produktibo na paunlad ang sarili at ang pakikipagkapwa at may malawak na pananaw sa daigdig. Okay. Sa edukasyon ng pagpapakatao or sa ESP, ang palatandaan o batayang kakayahan ng functional literacy ay ang pagpapasya at kumikilos ng mapanagutan tungo sa kabutihang panlahat. Ang ibig sabihin, nilalayo ng ESP na linangin at paunlarin ang pagkataong etikal ng mag-aaral. Ang ESP ay naglalayong gabayan ang mag-aaral na mahanap o matagpuan ang kabuluhan ng kanyang buhay. Ang papel niya sa lipunang Pilipino upang makibahagi siya sa pagtatayo ng pamayanang pinaitiral ang katotohanan, kalayaan, katanungan at pagmamahal. Okay? Upang maipamalas ito, kailangang taglay niya ang 5 macro skills. Ano itong mga 5 macro skills? Ito yung skills ng pag-unawa, pagninilay, pagsangguni, pagpapasya at pagkilos. Lahat ng mga sinasabi ko, all of those which I've mentioned are part of this conceptual framework of the edukasyon sa pagpapakatao. Ito yung basis why we are teaching edukasyon sa pagpapakatao sa ating human capital, our learners who are the future leaders of this country in the future. Alright. So, lahat ng mga yun ay nakapanloob sa 4 na tema. From kinder to grades 1 to 10. So, there are 4 themes. The first one is about pansarili, sarili. Pananagutan pansarili for theme 1. Theme 2 is for pakikipagkapwa at katatagan ng pamilya. Theme 3 is paggawa tungo sa pambansang pag-unlad at pakikibahagi sa pandaigdigang pagkakaisa. And theme 4 is pagkamakatiyos at reverensya sa kabutihan. From kinder to grades 1 to 6, yung theme 1 is for quarter 1, yung theme 2 is for quarter 2, yung theme 3 is for quarter 3, and yung theme 4 is for quarter 4. And these are all presented in spiral progression. Okay, the same is true with grade 7, 8, 9, and 10. Theme 1 is grade 7, theme 2 is for grade 8, and theme 3 is for grade 9, and theme 4 is for grade 10. Alright, so let's go to this table here. talahanayan ng mga konsepto sa edukasyon sa pagpapakatao. As mentioned earlier, yung unang markahan entails about pansarili at sa pamilya. Yung ikalawang markahan, yung theme is about pakikipagkapwa, pagmamalasakit sa kapwa. And then yung ikatlong markahan is para sa kabutihan ng lahat. And then ikaapat na markahan or pangmakabansa, yung ikatlong markahan. And then ikaapat na markahan, paggawa ng mabuti ay kinalulugdan ng Diyos. So for the first theme, that is for the family and self, and then for kapwa-tao yung second, and then ikatlo yung para sa bansa, and then para sa Diyos. All of these themes are being included in all the learning competencies in the first, second, and third quarters for each grade levels. For each grade level rather. Okay, so let us look at this. Ito ang tema sa unang markahan. Sa baitang 7, ako bilang nagdadalaga. This is still about self. Baitang 8, pakikipagkapwa sa katatagan ng pamilya. Still with the family and self. And then for ikalawang markahan, pakikipagkapwa tao, tungkulin sa lipunan, makataong kilos. And then for third quarter, ang pagpapahalaga at virtud. Pagpapahalaga at virtud sa pakikipagkapwa, pagpapahalaga at virtud sa paggawa, pangunahing virtud, and so on and so forth. And then about Diyos ang sa ikaapat na markahan. Alright. Now let's go to the paraan ng, we are now with walkthrough of MELS in ASP. As mentioned earlier, this is composed of the paraan ng pagpili ng MELS, and then paano gamitin ang MELS at ang pagtaluntun sa MELS sa bawat key stage. Now let's proceed. Ano nga ba ang konteksto ng mga MELS for the most essential learning competencies? Ano ang context? Why is there a need for us to have this MEL? Ito ay ginagawa upang matugunan ang mga pangangailangan sa pagtuturo, pagkatuto, or the teaching learning sa panahon ng krisis o emergency dulot ng mga kalamidad or pandemya. This is what is happening right now. Okay? So ano ang mga MELS? Ano yun? Mga lubhang mahalagang kaalaman, pag-unawa, kasanayan, at pagpapahalaga na dapat matutuhan ng mga mag-aaral sa panahon ng krisis, kalamidad, or pandemya upang maging produktibo at mapanagot ang pamamayan. This is declared under the Declaration of Policy or the Section 2 of Republic Act 10533. Ano ang layunin ng mga MELS? Ang layunin ng mga MELS ay ituon ang pag-aaral ng ESP sa mga lubhang mahalagang kaalaman, pag-unawa, kasanayan, at pagpapahalaga ayon sa sitwasyon at yugto ng pag-unlad ng mga mag-aaral sa panahon ng krisis, kalamidad, or pandemya. Paano pinipili at paano nga ba pinipili ang mga MELS sa ESP? For example, there have been presentations from those or by those speakers ahead of me about the pagpili ng mga MELS. How were they selected? In the case of the ESP team, ginagawa nila ay yung pag-uuri kung essential or desirable ba ang bawat learning competencies. There was deliberation among them, and there was that declaration or pagpapasya, decision-making as to whether or not the identified MEL is pasok sa criteria. Okay, let us remember yung baitang or grades 1 to 6, binabawasan ang mga bilang ng learning competencies. And then yung grades 7 to 10, binabawasan ang mga paksa. Okay? Alright. So ang learning competencies ay essential. Paano nga ba siya? Bakit siya tinatawag na essential? Kung pumapasok siya or ina-address niya ang itong mga criteria ito. Okay. Standards, this is what we call as ST clips. Okay. Standards for ST, and then letter C is concepts, and then life for L, and then priority for P, and school for S. Pag ang learning competency ay sumasalamin or sinasalamin ang mga pambansang pamantayan sa pagkatuto that addresses the standards. Pag ito ay may kaugnayan sa mga mahalagang konsepto sa ibang asignatura, it addresses the concepts. Pag ito ay nailalapat sa buhay, that addresses life. Pag ito ay lubhang mahalagang pag-aralan nila, ito kung ikukumpara sa ibang LC or lubhang mahalagang pag-aralan dapat nila kung ikumpara sa ibang LC, lalo na kung titigil sila sa pag-aaral sa susunod na taon, dapat itong i-prioritize. So, sa paaralan lamang ito matutuhan kung hindi nila ito matutuhan sa mga magulang at komunidad. So, these are the criteria which will determine or which will help us decide whether or not a particular learning competency is really essential or part of the most essential competencies. And that was what they did in the central office. Kapag kulang o walang katangian ng mga ELC, hindi sila kasali. Alright. So, paunawa lang po, pinawasan lamang ang bilang ng mga learning competencies sa baitang 1 to 6 or sa grades 1 to 6 at ang bilang ng mga paksa sa junior high school, ngunit hindi ang mensahe or esensya ng paksa o learning competency. Ano po ba yung mga batayan ginagamit ng mga taga-central office in charge in the identifying or the selecting of the most essential learning competencies? According to them, ito yung mga criteria sa pagpili ng mga MELs, yung sinasabi kanina, yung SD clips. And then, yung developmental tasks ni Robert Havighurst. Then yung pamantayan sa pagkatuto, yung provided learning standards in the CG which was issued in May 2016. And then yung struktura ng curriculum. Okay? So, ano yung mga criteria sa pagpili ng mga MELs? Ito yung REL, readiness. Readiness for the next level of learning. May taglay na prerequisite sa susunod na antas ng pagkatuto. And then yung endurance, yung pangmatagalan. Ibig sabihin, or means to say, that if the learning competency will go beyond or will stay in the heart and mind of the student, will go beyond even after the test or even after a particular activity which this learning competency is being achieved, tumatagal sa puso at isipan ng bata. That will make sure that will help us determine na itong learning competency na ito is or will address the endurance test. Okay? The L there is the leverage. May maximum na pakinabang. May maximum na pakinabang sa pagkatao ng bata. Kung ang LC or learning competency na ito ay may maximum na pakinabang sa pagkatao ng isang tao, dapat lang siyang isali as part of the most essential learning competency. Okay. Ano-ano yung mga pamantayan sa pagkatuto or learning standard gabay sa pang-curriculum? Pangkalahatang pamantayan for the learning standards, pamantayang pangnilalaman for the content standards, and the pamantayan sa pagganap, yung performance standards. All of these are provided in the curriculum guide issued on May 2016. We have to realize that bago natin maabot itong learning competencies, dapat kailangan alam natin yung learning standards, alam natin yung content standards, and alam natin yung essential understanding. Dapat yung teacher alam niya so that she will be able to fully understand as to how to arrange the curriculum or how to arrange the activities which she wants for her students rather to pass through or to go through in order for them to be guided as to what learning competency shall they achieve in that particular activities. Okay? So, sa baitang 1 to 6, ito yung estruktura ng curriculum. In grades or levels 1 to 6, grades 1 to 6, ang mga learning competencies na may nakapaloob na batayang konsepto kahit hindi direktang binanggit ito. Just like here, for example, in grade 1, in the first quarter of grade 1, may learning competency na nasasabi na nakatutulong sa paglinang ng sariling kakayahan ang wastong pangangalaga sa sarili. In grade 3, there is this learning competency sa ikatlong markahan na kapag papahayag na isang tanda ng mabuting pag-uugali ng Pilipino ang pagsunod sa alituntunin ng pamayanan. Okay? Sa junior high school naman, ang 4 na uri ng mga kasanayan sa pampagkatuto o learning competency sa bawat paksa batay sa 6 na kasanayan sa cognitive process dimensions. This is under DepEd Order Number 8 Series of 2015. Policy Guidelines, or this is entitled Policy Guidelines on Classroom Assessment for the K-12 Basic Education Program. So andoon yung 6 cognitive process dimensions. Mga uri ng kasanayang nililinang sa bawat isa sa 4 na learning competencies at ang mga tanong na sinasagot ng bawat learning competency. So, for grade 7 to 10, ito yung mga learning competencies. Learning competency number 1, LC2, LC3, and LC4. Anong nandoon sa LC1? Knowledge. Ano yung guide question? Anong kaalaman ang kailangan upang maipamalas ang mag-aaral ng mag-aaral ang pag-unawa? For LC2, it entails comprehension, analysis, and evaluation. So ano yung guide question? Anong kasanayan ang dapat maipamalas tungo sa pag-unawa? For LC3, comprehension and synthesis, ito yung guide question. Ano ang pinakamahalagang mensahe na dapat maunawaan ng mag-aaral? At for LC4, application. Ano ang dapat maipamalas ng mag-aaral bilang patunay ng pag-unawa? So, ito na yung ipamamalas na ng bata kung ano ba yung dapat na ebidensya to prove that he really understood something from the lesson. Okay. Mga katangian ng batayang konsepto o essential understanding na nasa ikatlong LC. Now, let's go back to the ikatlong LC, comprehension and synthesis. Alright. So, it must have endurance or pangmatagalan o panghabang buhay. Kailangan ng pag-aaral, LC na ito, kahit tapos na siya sa pag-aaral. Yun yung sinasabi ko kanina, that if the learning competency will remain in the heart and in the mind of the student, even beyond a particular level or a particular grade level, a particular activity, or particular quiz or test, dapat yan siya ay i-declare na i-pass through the endurance test. Mailalapat niya ito sa mga konkretong sitwasyon ng buhay at sa anumang profesyon o curriculum exit na pipiliin niya. Hindi ito maaring maanod sa pagbabago ng panahon. The second one is a discipline-based, batay sa mga disiplina ng ESP. Nakaangkla ang batayang konsepto sa dalawang disiplina ng ESP. Ano nga ba yung dalawang disiplina ng ESP? Etika at career guidance. Ang expert system of knowledge na ipinahahayag nito ay nangangailangan ng matibay na batayan mula sa malalim na pag-aaral o pagsasaliksik. And the third is the needs and coverage. May napakaloob na mga konsepto. Ang malalaking mensahe ng batayang konsepto or the key concept ay maaari pang mahimay sa maliliit na konsepto. And this is where the unpacking will come in. Okay? We just need to understand ano yung key concept, ano yung dapat bang matutunan beyond what we see in the facade of a particular learning competency. Meron yan sa ilalim, meron yan. So, good teachers really do unpack because only teachers who understand well the learning competency will be able to fully understand kung ano yung mahimay-himay niya or maliliit na konsepto na dapat maintindihan ng mga estudyante. And then the next one is the potentially engaging. Lubhang mahalaga ang mensahe ng batayang konsepto sa buhay na mag-aaral. Kaya napupukaw nito ang kanyang interes, atensyon at pakikilahok. Okay. Now let's go to the paano gamitin ang MELS. Okay. Paano nga ba gamitin ang MELS ng ESP? Number 1, pag-aralan ang bawat most essential learning competency ayon sa pamantayang pangnilalaman or the content standards at ayon sa pamantayan sa pagganap or the performance standards ng bawat quarter o paksa. Number 2, isaalang-alang sa bawat MELP ang pinakamahalagang mensahe na dapat tandaan ng mag-aaral. Hindi lamang ang gawain o pagpapahalagang nakasaad dito. Ito ang batayang konsepto. So, meron tayong guide questions dito. Ano ang pinakamahalagang mensahe na dapat maunawaan ng mag-aaral? Ano ang kahalagahan ng paggawa ng gawain o pagsasabuhay sa pagpapahalagang nakapaloob sa learning competency? So, we should be guided by these questions so that we will be able to understand kung anong mensahe ang nandoon sa learning competency na yun. Ano yung batayan konsepto, the key concept. Okay? So um, for grades 1 to 6, mahalaga ang paghihinuha o pagtukoy mismo ng mga guro ng batayang konsepto na ipinahihiwatig ng isang LC or learning competencies or group of competencies kahit hindi direktang binanggit ito. Just like for example, in level 1 or grade 1, unang markahan, the learning competency is this one. Nasasabi na nakatutulong sa paglinang ng sariling kakayahan ang wastong pangangalaga sa sarili. The key concept for that, or of that particular learning competency is this one. Nakatutulong sa paglinang ng sariling kakayahan ang wastong pangangalaga sa sarili. Diba? So for grade 3, for example, in the third quarter, nakapagpapahayag na isang tanda ng mabuting pag-uugali ng Pilipino ang pagsunod sa tuntunin ng pamayanan. That's a learning competency. So what is the concept, the key concept of this particular learning competency? Isang tanda ng mabuting pag-uugali ng Pilipino ang pagsunod sa tuntunin ng pamayanan. Okay. For grades 7 to 10, makikita ang batayang konsepto sa ikatlong learning competency sa bawat paksa. Mahalagang gabayan ng guro ang mga mag-aaral na mahinuha ang basic, ang key concept, batayang konsepto, mula sa babasahin tungkol sa paksa. So for example, sa baitang at markahan, grade 7, ikalawang markahan, second quarter, na ipaliliwanag na ang isip at kilos loob ng ang nagpapabukod tangi sa tao, kaya ang kanyang mga pagpapasya ay dapat patungo sa katotohanan at kabutihan. Ang batayang konsepto or the key concept of this particular learning competency is this. Ang isip at kilos or ang isip at kilos loob ang nagpapabukod tangi sa tao, kaya ang kanyang mga pagpapasya ay dapat patungo sa katotohanan at kabutihan. Okay. Now here comes the third way or paano gamitin ang MELT ng ESP. The third one is bigyang prioridad, give priority sa pagtuturo at pagpili ng learning resources at paglinang ng batayang konsepto na nasa ikatlong learning competency ng paksa at ang ebidensya ng pagkaunawa nito. Ang performance task na nasa ika-4 na learning competency. Yung diniscuss natin kanina, yung 4 competencies sa secondary. Number 4, gamitin ang mga module o learning resources na nabanggit sa teacher's resources ayon sa tatlong hakbang sa itaas. Okay. So pag meron ka ng learning resources, you need to use it using the 1, 2, 3 steps na nabanggit a while ago. Okay. For grades 7 to 10, maaring gamitin ang mga gawain sa learner's module bilang pagtatasa or assessment ng pagkatuto. For example, sa Baitang 7, unang markahan, ikatlong learning competency, paksang talento at kakayahan. So here's the learning competency and here's the gawain. Alright? So important reminder lang po, nagsisilbing minimum essentials lamang ang MELT sa panahon ng pandemya. Hindi dapat isakripisyo ang kalidad o lawak or breadth, lalim, depth ng mga dapat matutuhan ng mga mag-aaral sa panahon ng krisis o pandemya. Now, we are now here with the pagtalunton sa MELT sa bawat key stage. Alright. During the deliberation ng ESP team sa Central Office, ang nangyayari po doon, merong mga learning competencies na na-enhanced or binago, merong niribisa upang pagbutihin ang pagkakalahad, merong mini-merged or pinagsama. For example, dalawang LC na pinagsama dahil nasasalamin or naipahahayag ng ikalawa ang diwa ng una. And then merong dinadrop, isinasantabi LC na hindi sinama sa mga MELT dahil hindi naman ito prerequisite sa mga nauna o sumunod na LC o naulit lamang ito sa katulad na LC. So, in summary, there are 3 things that happened to the previous LCs in the curriculum guide of May 2016. Merong na-enhance, merong na-merged, merong na-drop. Okay? So here is now the chart ba ito? Or tape, ang tawag nito? Graph, rather. Okay. Comparison between the MELT and the learning competency na nasa curriculum guide, May 2016, yung curriculum guide in May 2016. The red ones are the number of MELTs na gagamitin natin for 2020-2021. Remember, ang MELTs ay gamitin lang during this pandemic. And most probably, we will be using it within the school year 2020-2021. That was emphasized in the briefer ng MELTs. Okay? Yung learning competencies na nasa CG or the curriculum guide of May 2016 are being represented by the yellow ones. Okay? So as you can see, for grade 1, there were 21, but in the MELT now, there are just 17. In grade 2, there were 24, and then sa MELTs ngayon, meron na lang 23. For grade 3, there were 17, ngayon 17 na lang. 22 sa grade 3, and then 17 na lang ngayon. And notice that in number 4, hindi nawawalan or hindi naman nadadagdagan. 13. For grade 5, 31 down to 17. 27 rather. For grade 6, 13 down to 12. Then for grade 7, 64 to 44. For grade 8, 64 to 52. And then for grade 9, 64 to 51. And then for 64, from 64, for grade 10, nagiging 56. So notice na maraming nawawala sa 7, 8, 9, and 10. As mentioned earlier, binabawasan yung paksa. Binabawasan yung paksa sa secondary for grade 7, 9, and 10. Alright. So ito yung detalye. Bilang ng binago, pinagsama, isinantabi ng mga MELs. This will be provided naman to the trainers who will be doing this in the SDO level. So for example, in Baitang 1, in level 1, in grade 1, there were 21 in the May 2016 curriculum guide. Walang binago, walang pinagsama, pero may isinantabi. So there are only 17 number of MELs, total number of MELs for the school year 2020-2021. And the percentage compared to the previous CG, 81% of MELs are being carried over from the CG of May 2016. So another example, for grade 3, there were 22, walang binago, walang pinagsama, pero may isinantabi, naging 17 na lang. Alright. For grade 2, there were 23, may binago. Curriculum, learning competency 9, 10, and 11, binago siya, ni-revise lang siya, pero walang pinagsama, walang isinantabi. So it makes 23 MELs for grade 2. Alright. For grade 7, walang binago, walang pinagsama, pero maraming sinantabi. For grade 8, walang binago, walang pinagsama, pero maraming isinantabi. For 2016, alright, wait for a while. Mahalagang paunawa, sa paggamit ng MELs ay nakaayon sa napapanahong krisis o pandemya. Ang mga MELt ay magsisilbing minimum essentials, ngunit hindi dapat isakripisyo ang kalidad. This has been mentioned earlier, the lawak and the lalim ng mga dapat matutuhan ng mga mag-aaral sa panahon ng krisis o pandemya. Kaya inaasahan pa rin ang pagpupusa, dedikasyon at commitment ng mga guro, gabay ng mga tagamasid at magpapatupad ng mga MELt na ito. So here's another example for grade 1. Pamantayan sa pagkatuto, anong ginawa ng mga members of the deliberating team doon sa central office? For example, tungkulin sa aking sarili at pamilya. Ito yung learning standards. And then for the first quarter, merong learning competency na nakikilala ang sariling gusto, interest. Look at this, pinanatili ito. Ang dahilan is tumutugon sa mga criteria ng endurance. And when you say endurance, na-mention na yan kanina, yung mga learning competencies that remains in the heart and mind of the learner, even beyond a particular test or a particular quiz or a particular activity. Okay? Now let's go to the unpacking of competencies. Much have been said about the unpacking of competencies. I am so sure that a lot of my co-supervisors in the CLMD have mentioned already about unpacking of competencies. So I found it proper that I am just going to present to you a particular content of an article that I have read last night about why we should consider unpacking the competencies. So here are those answers, or here are the answers of that particular question. Number one, teachers who do the work to unpack standards or learning competencies are the ones who understand them. Meaning to say, yung mga teachers na gumagawa ng unpacking, medyo sila yung mas lalong nakakaintindi doon sa particular learning competencies na yun. Understanding all of the standards learning competencies helps teachers wisely choose the essential or power standards. Identification of the depth of knowledge required of the standards leads to more thoughtful lesson design. Laser-like focus, take note, laser-like focus on the standards and team-created common formative assessments go hand in hand. And then the unpacking process keeps the focus on all students learning at high levels. Why? Because uh, parang the competencies are given in a staggered basis or inuunti-unti, hinahati-hati, hindi siya in bulk. So if the teacher has the capacity of unpacking, let the teacher do the unpacking or let her unpack because that will benefit or that will redound to the benefit of the learners. These are the suggested steps in unpacking learning targets or learning competencies. Suggested lang po. Number one, read the standards as a team. So work with your co-teachers. And then, circle the verbs, underline the nouns and noun phrases, determine the number of targets found within the standards, write as separate learning targets, remember to keep the core language intact at all times, do not omit any part of the standard, determine the depth of knowledge required of the standard, pull the academic vocabulary from the standard, unpack all of the standards before digging into how the standards will be taught and assessed. That's good. Read all of the unpacked standards to determine the standards you will prioritize. So I hope this will help us in the process of unpacking our learning targets or learning competencies. Okay? Now let's go to pagtatalunton sa bawat parts of a lesson exemplar. All right. So in the previous activity of the CLMD last week, we had our orientation in the development of learning resources or on the development of learning resources that was given by Dr. Almasan. And these are the parts of the lesson exemplar which was also part of the discussion which was made by Dr. Almasan. So for the benefit of those who were not there in that particular orientation, may I now present the parts of a lesson exemplar. As you can see, the lesson exemplar is just like a detailed lesson plan. Meron siyang pamantayang pangnilalaman, meron siyang pamantayang pagganap, meron siyang kasanayang pampagkatuto or the learning competencies, meron siyang pangunahing konsepto or key concept. So it should be written in the template, all this information about these standards. And then, layuning pagkatuto, mayroon siyang objectives, meron siyang nilalaman. Under this nilalaman are the references and the resources. Okay? Pamamaraan ng pampagkatuto. Under it are the panimulang gawain or pagsasanay, balik-aral, pagganyak. And then, mga gawaing pagpapaunlad, huwarang paggawa or the gawin ko part. And then, pinamatnubayang pagsasanay, gawin natin, guided activity. And then, paglalapat, yung gawin mo, application. And then, there is the evaluation, then kasunduan or assignment or takdang aralin. And then, pagninilay-nilay. Content of which or content of the pagninilay-nilay, ito yun. Ito pa din, parang sa detailed lesson plan. Bilang ng mag-aaral na nakakuha ng 80% sa evaluasyon, bilang ng mag-aaral na nakakuha ng score na mababa sa 80% at binigyan ng karagdagang gawaing pang-remedial, Mabisa ba ang mga araling pangremedial, and so on and so forth. And then your name, and then the school and the division below. Alright. Yun siya ang part ng lesson exemplar. So with that, I would like to quote Martin Luther King when he said, Jr., when he said, somewhere along the way, we must learn there is nothing greater than to do something for others. So all of us here are destined to do something for others, and I would like to congratulate all of us because we have done such noble um, action or act uh, that would help others. Let us help our co-teachers, our co-employees in the field, so that they will be fully be guided, or they will be fully guided as to what they are going to do, especially in addressing the problem given by the pandemic, in the delivery of instruction, and in the utilization of our most essential learning competencies. So with that, I would like to say good day to all of you, and God bless us all.
Maria Chelo D. Estrada for the competencies in ESP and SPFL. Up next, for the most essential learning competencies in EPP, TLE, and TBL, we have two speakers. Okay. First, let us welcome one of the education program supervisors of DepEd Region 11, Dr. Pedalina O. Huevas, and to be followed immediately by the Senior Education Program Specialist of Bureau of Curriculum Development, DepEd Central Office, Sir Chris Valiente. Okay. So once again, the competencies in EPP, TLE, and TBL. Okay, our technical team is still fixing the video. Okay, reminders, please be attentive of our attendance link because anytime it will be posted on your screens. Okay, once again, good afternoon. Are you still there watching? Okay, the issue is still not fixed. Please wait for a while. Okay. Okay, so let me read some comments from our viewers. From Ma'am Suzette Anito. Good afternoon po. Still watching from Sampao Integrated School. Good afternoon, Ma'am Suzette, and to all the teachers of Sampao Integrated School, especially to their principal, Ma'am Fe A. Claro. Okay, another comment from my friend, teacher friend, Ma'am Junilyn Suazo. Maayong hapon sa tanan. Still watching from Bunawan Elementary School. Okay, maayong hapon, Ma'am Junilyn. O maayong hapon sa tanan teachers sa Bunawan Elementary School. Another comment from Ma'am Mechilu Kalapotok. Good afternoon, everyone. Still watching po from Sampao Integrated School. Another comment from Sampao Integrated School. Okay, I guess the video is now ready. So once again,
Program Supervisor in charge for Edukasyong Pantahanan at Pangkabuhayan or EPP, Technology Livelihood Education or TLE, Technical Vocational Livelihood Education or TVL. Please allow me to introduce to you the most essential learning competencies for EPP, TLE, and TVL. Let me share my slides. Now, just like the previous speaker, I wish to discuss with you the process of the determination of milks. Identify the components of milks, explore how to use the milks, familiarize the milks through a walkthrough. Now, we need basic education, but I would like to reiterate that these milks will be used by the field implementers for school year 2020 to 2021 only. Now, what is milks? How can this help our teachers and learners during the new normal? Now, MELS is the instruction that focus only to the most essential and indispensable competencies that our learners must acquire. These are what we call the non-negotiable. It serves as guide to teachers in addressing the instructional needs of learners while ensuring that curriculum standards are followed. And we need to remember that everything in the MELS is taken or anchored in the curriculum guide. Now, how these MELS are identified. Now, we need to remember that the identification of MELS was done through the initiative of the DepEd Secretary, the Honorable Leonor Magtulis Briones, in collaboration with the experts in the Bureau of Curriculum Development, or BCD, and the Assessment Curriculum and Technology Research Center, or the ACTRC. Let me share to you some of the characteristics of an essential learning competency, or the MELS, which later was identified as most essential learning competency. Now, the MELS is something that would remain with learners long after a test or unit of study is completed and is useful beyond a single test or unit of study. It is applicable to real-life situations, especially during this what we call new normal condition. If students leave school, it would still be important for them to have this competency above many others. It is aligned with national and local standards and frameworks. It connects the content to higher concepts across content areas. Now, how did these competencies were streamlined into MELS? Now, competencies were originally taken from the K-12 curriculum guides. From there, competencies were extracted and identified as essential learning competencies based on the needs of times. Now, in this time of national health emergency brought about by COVID-19, those competencies were again scrutinized and become the most essential learning competencies. These have now become the non-negotiables in the curriculum, meaning this should be taught to the students taking the particular specializations. Now, for the subject EPP and TLE, there are 883 original learning competencies from the curriculum guide, which was reduced to 749, and that becomes now the most essential learning competencies, or again, the non-negotiable. That is only about 85% left from the original LCs from the curriculum guide. That is 15% has been removed. For the TVL specializations and the SPTVE, or Special Program for Technical Vocational Education, there are around 95 specializations, and more learning competencies are here because it comprises four components, which is the home economics, or HE, the industrial arts, or the IA, and the Information and Communication Technology, or ICT, and the Agri-Fishery Arts, or AFA. No MELS has been released yet, as this may affect the national assessment. However, learning modules has been released to all schools offering TVL specializations long before this COVID-19. So what will happen to them? The school's division offices are now taking the initiatives on how to go through it in coordination with the regional office. Now, there are 6 components of MELS. You have one, the quarter, the content standards, the performance standards, the most essential learning competencies, duration, and goals. So what are they? Quarter refers to the time or period where topical coverage of a particular subject in a grade level is given. It is located in the first column in the MELS. So you can see the red one. And next is the content standard. It identifies and sets the essential understanding that should be learned in a specific period. This covers specified scope of sequential topics within each learning strand, domain, theme, or component. Content standards answer the question, what should the learners know, do, and understand? It is located in the second column of the next. Next is the performance standards. What is performance standards? This describes the abilities and skills that learners are expected to demonstrate in relation to the content standards. The integration of knowledge, understanding, and skills is expressed through creation, innovation, and adding value to products, performance during the independent work or in collaboration with others. Now, as teachers, we teach our students how to learn. So the performance standards can tell what can learners do with what they know. How well must learners do their work? How well do learners use their learning or understanding in the new normal situations? How do learners apply their learning or understanding in real life contexts? What tools and measures should learners use to demonstrate what they know? It is located in the third column of the mix. Next is the most essential learning competencies. This refers to the knowledge, understanding, skills, and attitudes that students need to demonstrate in every lesson or learning activity. It is located in the fourth column of the next. Next component is the duration. It tells us about the period of time a particular competency will be taught. It is located in the fifth column of the mix. Next is the code. Now, this was initiated in order to identify learning competencies that are connected and exhibited spiral progression. These ELSs bear the same code number and is connected to the Learning Resources Management and Development System. This is beneficial for the school heads and supervisors in monitoring the pace and progress of the lessons delivered by the teacher. It is located in the last column of the next. Now, it can be easily understood this way. TLE is the subject, DM which stands for dressmaking, is the specialization. 9 stands for the grade level. SK stands for the lesson or skirt, because the students will be sewing skirt. And an I stands for quarter. The AC stands for the week, or A, B, C, week 1, 2, and 3. And 1 refers to learning outcome number 1. The XE here refers to the home economics. That's all. Thank you very much. And to unpack the myths, we are lucky to have with us today the Senior Education Program Specialist from the Bureau of Curriculum Division, or BCD, of DepEd Central Office. Please help me welcome Mr. Christopher Valiente.
Maayong adlaw po sa inyong lahat. Ako po si Christopher Valiente mula po sa Bureau of Curriculum Development. I am here today to discuss with you the unpacking of most essential learning competencies in the area of EPP, PLE, or the Edukasyong Pantahanan at Pangkabuhayan, and Technology and Livelihood Education. First and foremost, I would like to acknowledge the people from DepEd Davao region. First, Ma'am Evelyn R. Caldero, the Regional Director. Next, the Chief Education Supervisor of Curriculum and Learning Management Division, Ma'am Janet. And of course, our friend from Region 11, the Regional Supervisor of EPP, PLE, and PPL, Ma'am Pedelina O. Huevos. I'm sure that Ma'am Inday have already discussed to you some of the premises as regards the utilization of most essential learning competencies in this area. So to continue, there are MELs that have broad stroke competencies which expected to be unpacked by the teachers. So in our examples here, drawn from the MELs of grade 6, so we have here buys and sells products based on needs. So if you will unpack this MELs, it will give you define needs and wants. We also have identify the needs of the community. And we also have here develops a product. Next, sells products based on needs and demands in school and community. So if you will unpack these MELs, it will give you prepares costing of product, compute for markup price, decide the selling price. And in our last row, we have here enumerate sources of family income. So the unpack MELs for this will be sell products based on community needs and demands, explain family income. We also have discussed the importance of income and enumerate sources of family income. So in the succeeding slides, I will show you the detailed way on how to unpack the most essential learning competencies. So in our example here, this particular curriculum guide is the curriculum guide of agri-crop production. So just to give you an information that we really don't identify MELs for the specialization subjects because it might have an impact on the national certification. And although we have some suggested specializations, I think that will be discussed later by Ma'am Huevos. So to continue, our target competency was from the unit of competency lesson 8, caring and maintaining crops. So, ang learning outcomes po natin ay applied pest control. And our target learning competency is perform monitoring of pest incidents based on prescribed procedure. So in unpacking a certain competency, so we have to consider the codes and the content. So if you will notice sa code ay this particular LO and the learning competencies, meaning LO1 hanggang sa 1.5, ay ituturo po natin ang second quarter, weeks 1 to 5, as per coding. And to elaborate this further, let me show you the slide. Okay. So kung makikita po natin, kung papansinin po natin mabuti ang ating learning competencies, some of the contents was not actually present doon po sa ating learning competencies. So again, our target is perform monitoring of pest incidents based on prescribed procedure. So this will be taught for second grading, weeks 1 to 5. So I know in the field, ang ginagawa po natin ay budgeted work. But in my suggested format of how to unpack learning competencies, ito po ay tinatawag nating calendar of learning objectives. Because yung hindi pa po na-unpack na learning competency, tinatawag po natin siyang terminal objective, and then the unpack learning competency ay pwede po natin siyang tawaging enabling objectives. So here in our calendar of objectives, kung makikita po natin, again po, Unit of Competency, Lesson 8, Caring and Maintaining Crops, or CAMC. The content standard, the performance standard is there, the learning outcome, the applied pest control, and then our learning competency na in-unpack po natin, which is 1.1, perform monitoring of pest incidents based on prescribed procedure. And then, as per coding, ito po ay weeks 1 to 5 nating ituturo. Pero ito pong nakuha po natin or naging result po ng ating unpacking ay ituturo po natin ng 24 hours or 3 weeks. Meaning, yung first 3 weeks, yung A to C, ay ito na po ang ating ituturo. Ito pong ating learning objectives. So, ang atin pong content, kung makikita po natin, ay nag-reflect na po siya dito po sa ating learning objectives. So, if you will elaborate this further, ang second grading po ay nagsisimula sa third week of August. So, kung makikita po natin yung duration o yung hours per day, yung mga madadali na learning competency, like identify the different types of pests, diseases, hanggang doon po sa identify the different types of pests, mollusks, ay ituturo lamang po natin ng 1 hour. So, kung titingnan po natin dito, yung atin pong week 3, which is equivalent to 8 hours, ay naituro na po natin yung learning objectives 1.1.1 hanggang pong 1.1.7. And as I mentioned earlier, yun pong ating content ay present na po sa ating learning objectives. And then yung discuss the safety procedures in monitor pest incidents. So binigyan po natin siya ng 2 hours because kung titingnan po natin sa Bloom's Taxonomy of Verbs, ang discuss po ay nagpo-fall na siya sa application level. Okay? So kaya medyo mabigat po yung ating duration. And then for week 4, yung record pest incidents in the locality because matagal-tagal po yan ang pagre-record ng data or pag-gather ng data, especially po doon po sa context ng bata. Binigyan po natin siya ng 8 hours or 1 week. And then of course the reporting of the result of monitoring pest incidents in the locality ay 8 hours din po, or it will be taught in September week 1. So medyo matagal po yan, kaya po almost 1 week po yung nilagay natin. Again, these hours per day, ito po ay suggestion lang po. Meaning, you can contextualize this, or we give you the leeway on the duration, but as per the identified MELCs, these are non-negotiables if you would see, or if you read the briefer of these MELCs. So yun lang po. I think that's the end of my discussion regarding the unpacking of most essential learning competencies. And the rest of the slides will be discussed by the regional supervisor, Ma'am Huevos. Muli po, maraming salamat, and we hope that you are positive with regards to the learning continuity plan of DepEd, na hindi po dapat nawawala ang education in these trying times, because education is the key to success. Maraming salamat po sa inyo.
Thank you so much, Sir Chris. We hope to always hear curriculum updates from the central office and news from you should there be any changes. Thank you very much again, and God bless. Be safe, Sir Chris. Thank you.
And those were Dr. Fedelina O. Huevas and Sir Chris Valiente for the EPP, TLE, and TVL competencies. Up next, the last session for this unpacking of competencies. Up next, the most essential learning competencies in MAPE. That is welcome. One of the education program supervisors of the Curriculum and Learning Management Division, DepEd Region 11, Ma'am Jesseline B. de la Cuesta. Okay, our technical team is still preparing the video. Okay, so at this moment, let me read to you some comments on our YouTube channel. Okay, from Ma'am Reina Salas. Good afternoon, still watching here from Luna. Good afternoon, Ma'am Reina. I hope you are doing well. And from Ma'am Mariza Ines. Yes, still watching from the Buyan Central Elementary School.
Hello, Ma'am Bam.
Okay, hi Sir Rafi. Good afternoon.
Yes, Ma'am Bam. So while waiting po, controller, paki-flash po ng ating Katami link para po sa ating teacher participants po. Controller, and also, reminder lang po sa ating teacher participants, ayan na po ang ating evaluation link. Kindly screenshot po at pakitake na po para tuloy-tuloy na po tayo mamaya para sa ating Katami evaluation. And of course, teacher participants, don't forget to write your comments on our comment box. Ayan po. Yes, Ma'am Bam.
Okay. Okay, while waiting again for the video to be played, I am encouraging everyone to post questions because after this competencies in MAPE is the last session for the unpacking of competencies based on the MELC. Okay? Once again, please let me welcome Ma'am Jesseline B. De La Cuesta.
Good morning to everyone. Welcome to our regional LMS training for MAPE, SPA, STS, and TED. But before anything else, I would like to thank our regional director, Director Evelyn Catantero, our assistant regional director, Ines Asuncion, of course my Chief Janet Delato. And I would like also to welcome my counterpart or the chief of all officers for the curriculum. And I would like to welcome also my counterpart in the division offices for MAPE, SPA, SPS, and TED. So to my division counterpart from Davao City, we have Dr. Elsie Cagape, Sir Cagape, Sir Tigaino, Sir John Galan. For Panabo City, we have Apolinario Macautulos, Sir Ray de Ocampo, and Sir Ray Carlo. For Tagum City, Sir Isaias Maguyop, Sir Darian Suyat, and Sir Edgar Sangala. For Davao de Oro, we have Sir Dexter Pequeña. For Davao del Norte, Miss Rachel Nokia and Miss Marlene Pico. For Digo City, we have Sir Angel Bisaga Jr. and Ma'am Arlene Barba. For Davao del Sur, Sir Aldous Bodiki and Ma'am Sherilyn Cometa. For Davao Oriental, Occidental, we have Sir Rodrigo Milay, Miss Irene Caballero. For for Mati City, we have Sir Jude Parioli and Leia Parioli. For Davao Oriental, we have Sir Bernabe Basilisco and Ma'am Connie Wong. And from the Island Garden City or Igapos, we have Sir Romulo Eliseo, Ma'am Arlene Lobrado, and Ma'am Lourdes Manlangit. And of course, I would like also to welcome all the participants, the teachers of MAPE, SPA, SPS, and TED. But I will uh, explain to you what is MELT all about. So, so the Department of Education Region 11, in light of the COVID-19 pandemic and the consequent shortened academic year, the Department of Education, through Bureau of Curriculum Development and the Curriculum Standard Development Division, has produced a list of the most essential learning competencies. So it was done in order to ensure that the grade level standards, along with the corresponding content and performance standards set for each learning areas, are still attained. In the process of identifying the MELT, the endurance criterion was used as the sole determiner, guided by the requirement that the learning competencies or the LPs be useful in lifelong learning. The group of specialists in charge of the MAPE curriculum recognizes the role of the subject in providing the physical health, cultural literacies, artistic expression, skills necessary in acquiring the knowledge and values to live a more meaningful life. Further, the MELT is identified are those that work in close association in other competencies in other subjects, thus maintaining the curricular quality of integration. So this is the most essential learning competency matrix or the MELT. For MAPE, music, art, and physical education. So first question, what is MELT? So MELT is the most essential learning competency.
Hello, Ma'am
We
Bam.
apologize for the interruption of our video presentation, and rest assured our technical team is doing their best to resume the video.
Yes, yes, Ma'am
How are you
Bam.
there, Sir Rafi?
So while waiting, yes, Ma'am Bam. So while waiting for our controller, okay, please, teacher participants, kindly post now your questions on our comments box. And also, our attendance link is now flashing on our screen. Okay?
It is not okay,
Yes,
dear
that
teacher participants. Okay, the most awaited link for this day, the attendance link, is finally being currently displayed on your screen. Our attendance link is bit.ly/kapwest lms day 2. Okay, our video is now ready.
Through movement, music writing, may it be in paper or air, and visual imagery. The same with the art, physical education, and health education. So as a general rule, learning competencies are retained. When we say retained, it is satisfies the endurance criterion, which greatly contributes to lifelong learning and is a prerequisite skill to the next grade level. Some are merged or clustered if they have the same objective of learning intentions, thus can be combined into one comprehensive learning competency. Some are dropped if they are too specific and the articulation is similar to that of learning topics, deemed appropriate to be introduced in the earlier quarter or grade level or moved to a later quarter or grade level. So some are dropped, so we said before, some are retained, some are merged, some are dropped, but some also are rephrased. Ibig sabihin, simplified. The process of identifying the male. So we have the K to 12. Of course, we know the K to 12. And then, after the K to 12, Himay-himay pa talaga yan for the essential learning competency. And then, dahil lang sa pandemic, at nagiging final MELC or the most essential learning competency. So the K-12 essential MELC is here. The MELC is not a departure from the K-12 curriculum. The standards are the same. They are retained. That it focused on the attainment of the 21st century skills. And of course, the codes and the tags are retained for the merged and retained competencies. All learning areas will be taught. So we have here the current PGs versus the MELC. So for the total of all the subjects and the all grade levels from grade 1 to senior high, we have the current PGs of 14,148. And then here in the MELC, we retain only 5,548. But for the MAPE alone, the current CGs versus MELC in MAPE is like, in the grade 1, we have 84. For the grade 2, we have 82 MELC. For grade 3, we have 102 MELC. Grade 4, 92. For grade 5, 9. Grade 6, 96. Grade 7, 118. Grade 8, the same with grade 7. Grade 9, we have 114. And grade 10 is 92. From current CGs of 1,436, nagiging 997 na lang. So, kumunti dito sa MELC. So, we have here also the comparison of the MELC per subject or per learning area. So, like in grade 1 or the current CGs, we have 358. For the ELC, diba, from K-12 to ELC to MELC, so nagiging 286 for the LLC. And then to the MELC, nagiging 223. Later, I will explain to you kung bakit siya bumaba. The same with the arts, we have here from 390 to 333, and then the final is 334. I don't know, as you can see, nagdagdag pa ng isa sa MELC. So dito sa graph, makikita mo talaga na bumaba yung nasa MELC natin. So except the grade 9. And then we have also here for physical education from the current CG of 356 to ALC 189, and the final MELC is 155. And also for the health, so we have here the 339 for the current CGs, to the ALCs 295, and for the MELC it is only 276 MELC. So for field implementers like the SPOs, you are encouraged to contextualize the most essential learning materials in order to accommodate the varying context of learners, teachers, learning environment, and support structures, considering both the content and the performance standards. So how to use the MELC? Here's the sample MELC of grade 2. I will give you example for quarter 1. So in quarter 1, the content standard is to demonstrate understanding of the concept of rhythm by applying notes and rest, rhythmic patterns, and time signature. So you will use that content standard. So we have also here the performance standard. And here on the right side is the most essential learning competency. So sa week 1, ilang days yan? Sa music lang yan ha. Week 2, we have 3. and week 4 to 5, and to week 6 to 8. So, bakit ilan lang isang content standard at naging 1, 2, 3, 4 siya hanggang 8 weeks? So, gawin ninyo is you add more subtopic for aralin in every learning competencies to hit the targeted LC to 1 week to 6 weeks. The same with to add more topic or aralin in every MEL. So, like for example, identifies the value of the note, rest used in particular song. So, hindi mo man yan talaga ma-teach in one setting. So, you can use that for the whole week. You add on aralin in every MEL. Okay? So, the same with the for the art, the same. For the art, meron na talagang siyam na most essential competency. So for week 1 to 9, yan ang mga competencies ninyo. So budget the time, halimbawa sa week 1, to discusses the concept that art possesses elements, pwede kayo magdagdag ng aralin para makuha ninyo ang 1 week. Then, 3rd week, 2nd week, hanggang 8 weeks. Kasi, pag isa lang ang competencies ang gagamitin mo, 1 day lang yun. So, dapat dagdagan mo ng mga aralin. So, the first day, iba, basta for the whole week, yan yung melt mo. Yan yung competency mo. So, you dagdag more aralin. Bahala ka kung ilang idagdag mo. Mas better kung madami kang strategies na ituturo mo sa mga mata. So, the same with physical education. We have only 4 melt. So you must dagdag in some of the physical education are embedded also to other LCs. That's why yung aming ginawa sa grade 3, nagiging 9. Yung isang competency siya, marami siyang modules na ginawa namin. Kasi nagdagdag kami ng mga aralin. So, yan ang nangyari. So the same with grade 6 health. So we have for the first quarter, we have 5 maths embedded. So, ganun pa rin. So, week 1 to 3, dalawa describe personal health issues and concerns and demonstrate self-management skills. So, gagamitin mo yan or gagawin mo yan in 1 to week 1 to 3 weeks. So, sabihin, you dagdag more activities, more aralin. Okay. So, the same. So, we're finished with, we're done with grades 1 to grade 10. This time, we will tackle also the senior high school for grade 11 and 12. Iba yung senior high school kagaya sa atin kasi meron silang kumbaga first semester. Yung first semester nila, kumbaga kung sa ating elementary and junior high, para siyang first and second grading. And then the second semester, nagiging para siyang 3rd and 4th grading. Talaga naman yun. Okay. So here's also for the senior high school, grade 11 and 12. For grade 11 and 12, we have the physical education and health. So yung tinatawag nating HOPE, health optimizing physical education. So we have also here. So for grade 11, physical education is on first semester or first and second quarter. And then here's the example or sample MELC for grade 11. The same with elementary and junior high. So iba lang talaga ang kanilang parang grading, first grading, ang tawag sa kanila ay second semester, first semester. Okay, so ganun pa rin. First quarter, meron silang 9 MELC. So hanggang ilang weeks yan? Hanggang week 1 to week 10. So sa second quarter natin, 7 MELC. So sa 7 MELC, meron tayong 7 MELC, week 2 to 10. So kailangan you must dagdag. So the teacher talaga ay dapat meron siyang strategy na magdagdag siya ng aralin para sa isang araw, meron siyang gagawin. Hindi yung isang MELC lang gagawin niya. The following day, wala na siya. So So dapat i-plan niya, i-budget niya kung ano ang kanyang tuturo for the whole week. Kasi ang competencies, tagtagin niyo yan para dagdag atin. Okay. For grades 12, physical education is on second semester or third and fourth quarter. So the same sample, so the third quarter, 7 male, and for the fourth quarter, we have 8 male. The same process, dagdag aralin para more activities for weeks in every week. So this time, we'll be going to discuss the competencies of grades 11 and 12 for sport track. So nakasama pa rin natin sa MAPE ito, pero tinuhay lang sila. So, sa sports track, iba sa kanila, meron silang mga iba't ibang mga topic na kaagad. Like sa grades 11, they are more on the following topics like safety and first aid, human movement, fundamentals of coaching, sports officiating and activity management, psychosocial aspects of sports and exercise, and fitness testing and basic exercise programming. Itong physical fitness testing natin, meron tayo niyan sa elementary at high school. And it can be, magbigay tayo niyan sa after 1 month after the first day of klase. Before, binibigay natin yan sa July. Pero ngayon, dahil wala pa tayong face-to-face, so gagawin yan sa bahay. Meron din tayong ginawa na physical fitness na video. It will be given to the whole of Region 11 division, courtesy of, naka-assign po dyan, courtesy of the Davao del Norte division. So, I would like to thank Ma'am D, the Sir Chief Mogis, and of course, Ms. Giselle, the coordinator of that project. And I would like also to thank the teachers and the models and the actors for that video. So, in the next day, makikita natin yung ating physical fitness test. And then, of course, dahil ano yan siya, dahil materials yan siya, dupaan pa rin yan siya sa quality assurance. So bukas o sa sunod na mga araw, makikita natin ang ating physical fitness video. Okay, so yan yung ating fitness testing and basic exercise. So doon tayo natapos na natin yan sa elementary and high school. For the grade 12 sports track, so ang kanilang topic naman ay fitness, more sports, and recreational leadership. So maybe the next days, meron din tayong mga lesson exemplars na ipapakita sa inyo sa mga selected nating mga trainers. Hindi ko na muna sabihin dito kung sino yung mga trainers natin, pero makikita natin sa susunod ng mga araw. Okay. So, the same pa rin sa first semester, 7 to 17 weeks. So, himay-mayin, dagdagan ng mga aralin or mga activities para makuha mo yung 17 weeks in 7 meals. Okay? So, kailangan ang teacher ay maging talaga, maganda kanilang strategies, mga activities para sa ating mga kabataan. Okay. So, part pa rin sa senior high natin, sa specialization natin ay art and design. So, dalawa ang atin sa MAPE. No? Meron tayong arts and design and sports track. So, for the sports track for grades 11 and 12, for arts and design, we have here the different topics of the grade 11. So, the topic for first semester, we have creative industries. So, the creative industries, yan yung art and design appreciation and production. Meron din tayong creative industries to performing art. When you say performing art, movement talaga yan. Okay. So, alam na yan ng mga senior high schools natin saka mga SDOs natin ng mga Fs. Kasi pumupunta talaga yan sila doon mag-monitoring. So, sa arts and design, ito yung specific topic ng grade 12 din. So, meron silang physical and personal development in the arts, developing Filipino identity in the arts. They have integrated elements and principles of organization in the arts. Meron din silang leadership and management in different arts and design, and production in performing arts. When you say production, siguro ang kanilang gagawin yan as general sa kanilang natutunan, gagawa sila ng production. Of course, may mga performers. So yan yung kanilang mga activity. Be sure na ang teacher talaga ay magiging creative. Meron na tayong marami sa YouTube, na marami tayong makukuha mga lessons, lalo na ngayon, dahil sa pandemic, meron na tayong mga free na mga webinar. So, to grab, take chance. Kasi wala na talaga tayong training na face-to-face. Even before, wala din tayong mga training kasi mahal din tayo mag-travel. So, the good for this pandemic is lahat ng nasa field ay makikita na nila sa webinar. Natin, it's free. Kagaya ngayon, kagaya sa ating LMS, yung mga participants from division offices, pwede rin silang yung ibang teacher na manood. Kasi gagawa din sila ng kanilang sariling module kung gusto sila magawa para talaga yung kanilang hilig sa computer, sa high-speed technology natin. Kumbaga, wow, marunong ako nito. So, lahat tayo ay nanibago except yung talagang mahilig sa computer or mga computer literate. So, sa ating mga teachers, even the teachers, even the tayo, mga supervisors, talaga naninibago din tayo sa ganito mga training. Pero exciting, di ba? Nakakatawa na nakakalito paminsan, kagaya nito na mag-lecture ka na wala kang audience. Pero I know, virtually, andyan lang kayo sa harap ko. So, ganun lang yon. So, again, sa arts and design, we have the topics of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, 5 topics. So, ganun pa rin, meron din tayong example dito sa first grading. So, 3 MELs yan in 8 weeks. So, himay-himayin pa rin natin kung ano yung nasa sa MEL. So, at the end of this session, or at the end of my lecture, for those who are interested to have the MEL, just actually na-send ko sa mga supervisors, sa mga counterparts ko sa division offices. Pero kung gusto niyo direct from me, pwede rin. Just PM me, alam niyo pangalan ko, Jocelyn D. De La Cuesta. So, hanapin mo lang sa messenger. Sabihin mo lang na kailangan mo ng SPS milk. Kailangan ko ng SPS SPA milk. Kailangan ko ng grade 6 milk. Kailangan ko ng senior high, or dyan sa golf or sports track and sports track and arts and design. So, i-share ko lang ito, nakakatawa kahapon. So, sabi sa group chat namin sa mga regional of supervisor. So, sabi niya, Nip, friendship, saan kaya, meron ka bang arts and design? And kung meron yan, nasa pinadalang milk na sa lahat-lahat. Ilan kayang pages yun? Yung first na milk natin, 599, dinagdag ang SPS at saka SPA, so something like 500 plus. So, hindi ko makita. So, you want, himay-himay? Diba, naka-grade 6 na, grade 1 to grade 6, naka-junior high na naka-senior high na siya, meron siya sports track, meron siyang arts and design, at meron pa akong, yung SPA, saka SPS na nakahimay-himay na rin. And I would like also to thank the help of Paulo Salvo, siya yung naghimay-himay na yon. Kasi pag hindi natin himay-himayin, pag ibigay natin sa lahat sa kanila, malilito ka sa paghahanap ng pages 1 to 500 plus. Bakit kaya ang ulo nun? So those who are interested or you want to have a copy of that milk, just PM me. PM is the key. Para naman online, PM is the key. Okay. Pero libre lang ito, wala lang itong bayad. Okay? So, at the end of my sharing, I would like to share with you the quotation of our friend Walt Disney. He said, "We keep moving forward, opening new doors and doing new things because we're curious, and curiosity keeps leading us down new path." Di ba, mga bagong mga pamamaraan? So, natapos din natin pala yung, wala, paano ba ito magpasok sa webinar? So, pindot-pindot siya. Anong link? Nakakatawa, nakaka-enjoy. So, ganun din. Another thing we have here, don't fear of the technology. Just embrace it. By Anthony J. D'Angelo. So, huwag kayo matakot. Kasi noon dati, matakot din ako dahil baka yung aking pindutin, ma-erase lahat yung aking file. So, explore lang talaga tayo. So, kagaya sa mga lecture natin, yung kahapon, so, para ba, paano yan? Sige lang, you just explore the new thing. And lastly, the only way to make sense out of change is to plunge into it. Move with it, and join the dance by Alan Watts. So thank you very much and good day.
Thank you so much, Ma'am Jesselyn B. De La Cuesta, one of the Education Program Supervisors of the Curriculum and Learning Management Division, DepEd Region 11. All right, that's end of our session this afternoon about the topics. Walk through with the melt, part 2, unpacking the competencies based on melts. At this point of time, ladies and gentlemen, is our open forum. Ayan. Requesting on screen our very own SDS, Ma'am Sarah Passion Kubar with Ma'am Dina D. Limos of Gabuyan Central Elementary School, and also with us, Sir Jack Villaber of Mangalibas Elementary School.
We are also joined by Ma'am Letty Agni and Ma'am Susan Rasupay. Good afternoon, teachers. Good afternoon, Ma'am Sara. Good afternoon, Ma'am Dina. Pasayaw-sayaw na si Ma'am Dina. Okay,
Hello.
where is...
Ma'am Dina, manadlayo tata.
Good afternoon, Ma'am Dean. Hello, good afternoon, Ma'am Sarah.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone.
I see you.
I hope
Good afternoon.
Elsa
Quick
Villaver has
folks.
already joined us.
Good
Hi,
afternoon.
Ma'am Let.
Hello, Ma'am Letty.
Hello, ma'am. Hi,
Welcome.
Ma'am Sarah. Good afternoon.
Hello, Ma'am Letty. I especially asked the master teachers, two master teachers, to be joining us this afternoon for the open forum. And thank you, Ma'am Letty Agni, for accepting the challenge. And also, one master teacher from Pagasa Elementary School. We have also with us Ma'am Susan Rasupay. I hope she could already enter the chat room now.
Okay.
Na-surprise, ma'am. Na-surprise. Unexpected. Nganong apil-apil, no?
Wala na mga master
Dito,
teacher.
Putol-putol.
Kung anong apil ko nga participants ko.
Meaning to say you are an authority.
Ay, thank you, ma'am, sir.
You're already an authority.
Pulis dito rin.
Hello, good afternoon, Master.
Okay, Mr. Host, never already inside the chat room now.
Hayag siguro ko.
Ayag ka Ma'am Let.
Gani, no? Samang kumadto.
Ito bang sa adlaw?
Against the light, ang imuhang Ma'am Letty.
Sana magod ko sa bintana, ma'am.
Kana, ma'am. Okay na, ma'am.
Ayan.
Maklaro na ka dito kang naong, ma'am.
Ingon ko ni
Pakita mga
pwede daw
makaon
bintana.
para na inspiration. Mutubag sa questions. Ma'am
I will
Sar.
also be changing my glasses. Okay, sakit sa mata ang ring light sa akong atubangan. Okay.
Padugang ko na sa gwapa. Atikon lang.
I'm using kasi a ring light and sakit siya sa mata. Nasa ako ang atubangan.
Ako siguro mag-dim light.
Okay. Sir Rafi, I think it's already time for the open forum. Are there any questions now?
Yes, Ma'am Sar. So our first question is from Sir.
Excuse me, Rafi.
Yes, ma'am.
I am hoping that all the school heads would be part of the facilitator to answer the diff. I would very much give that if the questions were raised by the
Your
teachers
voice is
themselves.
cut. Putol-putol.
It's cut.
So, Ma'am Sar, credit po ba
Can
ito?
we have questions from the teachers, please?
Okay, another question from the teachers. Okay, from Ma'am Elizabeth Claro, our first question. Regarding sa mga modules and activity sheets, who will print? Is it the district, the school, or the teacher?
Sandali.
Ako will answer.
The questions again, please.
Okay, from Ma'am Elizabeth Claro. From Ma'am Elizabeth Claro. Regarding po sa mga modules and activity sheets, who will print? Is it the district po or the school or the teacher? Sino daw po ang magpuprint ng mga modules and activity sheets? Ang district po ba? Ang school or ang teacher? Okay, ma'am?
Definitely not the district. Because the riser is broken, so the district cannot facilitate the printing of modules. So you have to do it yourselves.
DIY.
Di bitaw? Daot ato ang riser tinuod. So ma'am, magulat na lang dito ani sa kanang mga printables. Ma'am no. Sorry. Putol-putol po. Cut.
Putol po. If I'm saying the question is from Ma'am Elizabeth Claro regarding sa mga modules and activity sheet, who will print? Is it if I may answer the question raised by one of the Pag-asa Elementary School, one of my best friends when I am Tiro. Thank you for the question being raised. Of course, the responsibility for printing and reproduction of the different modules and activity sheets are given to the school heads in every school, in as much as they are the ones who have the MOA to be used for the printing of that. And although the division office is also having some they're looking for some budget for the reproduction of the different modules, but definitely this reproduction is not enough for the whole division of Davao del Norte in all the schools and in all grade levels. That's why 30% of the MOE of every school has been allocated for the reproduction of the modules and the activity sheet. Yun po. Definitely, this should not be shouldered by the teachers.
Okay. Welcome on screen, Ma'am Christine Wasupay. Okay, so that question is finally answered, no? Definitely, the one that will print the modules or activity sheets is not the district.
Wala na dungog.
Thank
Kita
you
raw
very
lagi
much
ko
ma'am, for
hindi
that.
sa
Huh?
Joiners ang
Inabangay
mga
din.
manong.
Okay, can we crack some questions here in relation with the different topic that has been taken up for the day? Much better clarification on a different topic kung meron.
Okay. Another
Okay.
question po from Ma'am Marilu Sunaho. Regarding the experiments, how can the learners do these tasks since it needs laboratory equipment and guidance of the teacher? Again, regarding the experiments, how can the learners do these tasks since it needs laboratory equipment and guidance of the teacher? That is from Ma'am Marilu Sunaho.
Can we ask the master teachers to answer that? Upon learning relative to the different modalities, to the different modes of teaching, I hope it's already being clarified on that. We would like to give the floor now to the master teachers or the school heads to answer such, please. Their host available. Sir Jack?
Teacher, that is from Ma'am Marilu Sunaho.
Oh,
Hello, Sir Jack.
yes, ma'am. Good afternoon.
And please,
Mapag-ito.
yes, sir. Yes, the question is relative to the experiment to be conducted or to be tasked by the learners daw, sir. How can the learners do this task since it needs laboratory equipment and guidance of the teacher? Na wala naman tayong face-to-face. So, sige. Can you please
So,
elucidate on that?
the conduct of experiment will be effective only if the learning modality BIOS is online. But as to the modular, I think it's hard for the pupils or for the teachers to facilitate that um, learning experiment or laboratory activities of the pupils. So I think the master teacher can further explain to this, especially Luna Elementary School, because they cater as the special science elementary school. So I know that Sir Alex has already a plan to this, being the in charge of the special science. Kana lang siguro, ma'am.
Mm-hmm. Can other master teachers please give some clarification on this?
Okay, ma'am. Good afternoon, everyone. For this particular questions regarding the questions of Ma'am Marilu Tunaho, if it needs laboratory equipments just like ano yan, yung magagamit, no, in a particular experiments, if there are still materials that needed or that is now you coordinate to the teachers or the pupils will coordinate to the teachers or they say for example gagawin na lang nilang ano ma'am ano yan localized no contextualize for that what is this milk i-contextualize na lang kung ano yung meron dyan sa kanila. Say for example, the thermometer, they will provide it for a certain pupils for their experiments.
Yes, definitely, Ma'am Letty, no? Kasi laboratory is one methodology or strategy
Yes,
in
ma'am.
teaching. So, with that, siguro dili siya need na dapat i-erase siya as part of the strategies of teaching because in laboratories or experiment strategy mas easier for the learners to learn, no, with that. But definitely siguro there will be minimal na siya ng mga activities na ipakandak. Although that could also be conducted with, even though modular ang atong mga bata. Just like what happened, siguro tomorrow we will be seeing that we will have this simulation activity tomorrow simulated by the senior high school. Kasi in senior high school, usually mga experiments, mga laboratory activities ginahimo nila. So during the simulation, we will find how effective or how are we going to deliver that with our learners. May isa na process na gi-adapt with modular modality na gamito, no. When there are learning gaps, kinsa man ang may dahang manok diha gasgiman og ano. When there are learning gaps na dili ma-address, pwede natong gamiton ang cellular phone calling the learners or by allowing the learners to text us. Even though modular siya, that's why we need really the contact information of our learners. And the learners also should have a contact information of the teachers because if there are gray areas when it comes to laboratory activities, tama yung gingon ni Ma'am Letty Agni, contextualized activities na siya, localized siya, very much localized. So that it could be, it should not be hard for the learners to conduct that laboratory experiment na as part of the strategies for learning. Pag need talaga na i-explain sa mga bata, there comes now the use of the cellular phone calling or texting and explaining further to the children or to the learners how they are going to do it. So I think dili kita siya pwedeng tangtangon as part of the strategies for learning. Kaya mas easier and mas deeper ang learning when it comes to experiments and laboratory activities. Can we hear from Ma'am Dina Linya?
Hi.
Ma'am Din? Yeah.
In my opinion though, kuan siya kanang inaana lang siya, contextualize, localize materials ang gamiton or kaninga webinar is teaching us how to unpack the learning competency. So naagyud sa ato ang mga kamot kung unsaon nato pagpasayon sa trabaho or kung mahimo ba nga skip siya or emerge siya sa lain nga lesson. Mura to. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. I hope Ma'am Marilu Sunaho has been enlightened to that. Any more enlightenment from our master teachers, Ma'am Sultan Rasukay, please?
I agree with you, Ma'am. Yes, Ma'am. I agree with you. In addition na lang ako we have also our parents or guardians at ang mga balay that could help our students for such laboratory activities that they will do. Kung then mo to siya mamapasayon ang ilahang paggamit with the help sa ilahang family nga naa sa balay. Na mo to siya nga ipa-simplify yun nato aron matabangan yun sila.
One thing is manalita no kanang sa ano kaning sa na lesson na we use yung pagpatubo sa munggos. experiment lang siya, contextualize siya, localize, di ba? It's easier for the children na they're going to observe every day kung ano na ang development ng pagtubo sa munggos, di ba? Just a very simple example for that. Kinahanglan pa ba na siya laboratory equipments? Di naman siguro. Not necessary naman siya. So, that's what we mean when we say it could be a localized or contextualized. But if there is really a need, actually wala mong yung tagbawalan na ng total yun na walay face-to-face learning. Ang ako na hibalaan, pwede na imobisita ng mga bata sa eskwelahan pero controlled. Say for instance, 5, we will group 5 children o sige, during this day so that you can observe with this our laboratory activity. May possibility na pwede na to na siya because if you're really going to look at it, ang atong mga eskwelahan hindi na pa-prepare og mga health di ba protocol materials and equipments. So who will be going to use that? Of course, it's the children. It's the parents and the children that will be visiting our schools. So when we give them the modules, when we submit, when the teachers will be submitting the modules, it's also din na they will be coming to school to pick up or to receive the modules that they are going to use. During that time, siguro pwede na ma-explain sa mga teachers if this really needs na mga experimentation sa laboratory or there are great areas for the children that could be pero hindi siya inyo na the whole class but a minimal number of pupils. Pwede na siya na. Or may possibility din pero mas bugat man po kung ang teacher ang mobisita sa mga balay. Mas bugat mas good. For me, just like atong ng mga gipang post sa Facebook kani nga nag-deliver sa mga modules no nakay pagilog mga ano pas na sa ingredients. Nakakita mo so mahirap po doon katawanan ng DepEd for that. So siguro ala-ala siya. When it comes to matters like that, contextualize and localize, we will use what's really within our hands para lang yun ma-emphasize ang learning sa atong mga bata. Ganun.
Anad man po ta ana kay bag-ura man ta nagka-equipment, di ba? Howd man ta ana? Kanang mag safety, gamit ang ligo.
Nakoy kadugang Ma'am Sar.
Yes, ma'am. Very much. Di po, ma'am.
Kuan ma'am, kaning before sa klase, there is a planning. So kailangan siguro mag-plan the teachers with their respective school heads, and then the science teacher will present unsa tong kailangan nila. Say for example kanang sa experiment, i-present na daan ma'am. So planning ang before sa klase.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Para ma-identify na ang mga needs.
Yes, ma'am.
Opo.
Thank
and
you po.
That way, our school heads also will not be in the limbo on how they're going to assist the teachers. Mas better man po na yung na. Para the school heads also will also have something as a guide for them. Kasi dapat namong himuon para ma-assist ang mga teachers. Ganun.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, let's crack for another question. Program host, please, is there any more questions? We have the same question, sir. Are we still going to use the SSES competencies or go for the new one? Ano yung new one natin? MELC? What do you mean by go for the new one, Ma'am Joy? Ano yung new one dito na sinasabi? If you're going to ask me what competencies are we learning competencies that we're going to use within this pandemic time, of course, I would rather say na we will focus on the use of the MALC, the most essential learning competencies, because that is what our DepEd Central Office is promoting us to use. Sayang naman din, they spent a lot, they used so many resources for that, and then dili nato siya gamiton. Yun talaga ang gamito nato, the new MALC, the pandemic time learning competency. Sir Just, some insights from Sir Host of Deliver, please.
Learning insight, ma'am. I will
Nakamute.
just commute
On the
man ko.
question
May.
being posed, wala, madunggan ka na mo. On the question that is being posed by Ma'am Joyce Galido, na are we going to use the SSES or are we going to use the new learning
As you said, ma'am, I am very much amenable
when you
that
say
your
new learning
suggestion.
competency, I expect
Oh, your
that
suggestion.
what is here is the email.
Because we are in the new normal time.
Sige.
Kana lang. Oh,
Ano yun?
kay the new one, the use of the new the most essential learning competency, as you said, and so that they will not also be bothered with the preparations, because the one that was used by the PLC that was used before is totally different to the MLC now, because the MLC now is being simplified so that the learners will not be bored in their learning activities, because the lesson is just being focused on the few competences. Ano na, ma'am, siguro?
What Sir Alex Redoniel here is asking relative to special science education, di ba? Sir Alex, although there are no touching, there are no touch relative to the use of the special science education, no, and the MELC, but definitely siguro, I do not have any relative idea on what learning competency the special science, kasi special science kasi kayo eh. So siguro I will give the task to Sir Alex Daniel, being the principal of the Special Science Education School, to dig deeper on this. What are you going to use? Is it the normal MELC that is being promoted by our department, or is there any special learning competency intended only for the special science education schools? Just like the SPED curriculum, we could never say that they will be using the same MELC, the same most essential learning competency on a special education class. So the probability of that is there are some other twists that will be used for this special program schools. So siguro I would just be giving the responsibility to our to our special science education principal, Sir Alex Daniel, to verify or to dig deeper what should be done on a special science. But definitely, I will be also trying to, I will also try my very best na we could also contact the people in the higher level relative to the implementation of the special science education.
Hello, Ma'am Sar. Ma'am Sar.
Yes po.
Na-contact ni Ma'am Sonia
Yes
ang
po,
taga
Ma'am Gina.
Na-contact ni Ma'am Sonia ang taga Kapilandya. Unya ang piyesa 742. Unya magpa-refund sila sa ilahang gasolina 1.5.
Mhm. Okay, we will talk about that after this forum because
Sige
we
ma'am.
will be having our post conference afterwards.
Okay ma'am, kay
And that will
nagsulti
be
lang si
5
Ma'am
hours.
Sonia kay mawala niya ang opportunity.
Okay, we will talk about that.
Yes ma'am.
Okay. As per Sir Alex, we will reinforce them with some special science education competencies and approaches. More or less, pwede din siguro Sir Alex, but definitely you should ask the people in the higher ups for that. Basig na po sila prepare for the special science education.
Okay, thank you so much, Ma'am Sarah. And another question from Sir Glenn Timbal. Good afternoon, ma'am. Do we have supplemental budget from our municipality to be used for supplies? Again, do we have supplemental budget from our municipality to be used for supplies? That's from Sir Glenn Timbal.
Sana all.
Sana all.
Sana all. Actually, I've talked with Sir Marlon Ibrado already. Kasi it's already Sir Marlon Ebrado who is sitting in the local school board, no? In line with the special education fund. Ang atong special education fund naka-focus karon sa at kaning Langilan district to be used para sa idig pamanday din ha oy. Hoy, pahunungan sa nang nagsigpamanday di. Ang atong special education fund is naka-focus ngayon para sa support sa Langilan district, which is the honoraria of the different local school board teachers that's handling mga classes for the IP school. So when I talk with Sir Marlon Librado, ang iyahag yung gingon sa kuha, wala joy budget na allocate for that. Good for other districts nga or good for other municipalities na walay mga extension schools or walay mga bag-o nga na-open nga mga eskwelahan kay they have allocations for the use of the different materials for printing. There are even municipalities who really purchase the equipment for that. But sad to say sa ato as of now wala di pa gyud mi makapromeso nga natay magamit na funds for that. So ang ano lang gyud nato din ha is ang MOE and the donations na pwede natong makapa-raise tag mga donations for that. Sorry. I could really say na sorry for that because my hands are tied.
Okay, thank you so much, Ma'am Sarah, for answering the question of Sir Glenn Timbal. Okay, controller, can you post another question from our participants? Okay, another question from Ma'am Mari Lusunaho. Ipadayon paghihapon ang science investigatory project, Sir Alex. Okay, this question is directed to Sir Alex, but unfortunately, Sir Alex is not live on screen. However, our master teachers or PSDS, would you like to answer this question?
Science investigatory projects, as we said kanina lang, contextualized, localized, or if there is really a way that we could do that, then why not? Pero if it will only burden much the learners and burden much the teachers, the science teachers, then more or less siguro, as of now, if we really cannot do it, then why should we force ourselves? Just like what our schools division superintendent has been always been telling us. Basahon ako ha. Ako'y basahon sa inyo. Ingon ang ato ang schools division superintendent. Good AM everyone. Ayaw jud din tawon mo pagpa-stress sa mga trabahoon. Always remember nga ang atong health ang mas importante sa tanan. Amping mo kanunay ang Diyos magpanalangin kanatong tanan samtang kita nakigbugno sa mga gimbuhaton tungod sa pandemya. Mag-ampo kanunay og mosunod sa mga protocol. So as per the statement of our school
Correct.
superintendent, anong lisod-lisod ang kinabuhi, no? Kung ingunana ang mga situation. If things are not within our hands, why do it? Diba? Ganun.
Kalayo kadugay pud sa ako ang
Okay, yes. Thank you, Ma'am Sarah. And
Have I
thank
given
you.
have I given you the answer already? Or we need to emphasize more answers from our master teachers and our school heads?
Yes. Do you like to add po, Ma'am Dina or Ma'am Letty or Sir Justo Villaver?
Ma'am Dina, please.
Okay, the sessions have shown the learning competencies that have been retained, merged, rephrased, subsumed, and deleted in all subjects. About the whole duration, today's duration. There were those that have been retained because it is essential to the learning. There were 2 to 3 competencies that have been merged because it can be taught in one time. Some learning competencies were rephrased in a different way, especially to make the meaning clearer. Some were subsumed or included or placed within something larger or more comprehensive. And the learning competencies that were deleted or eliminated because they are not essential to the learning. So therefore, this webinar is a blessing to us teachers. This will make our work easier, shorter, and enjoyable. Good afternoon.
Yes.
Thank,
That's it.
thank you
Kung
very
binisa
much,
yun
Ma'am
siya,
Dina.
kung binisa yun siya, manong lisod-lisod ng atong kinabuhi. Ganun.
Mao gani ma'am no, mag-enjoy lang.
Yes. Yes.
Ay, Diyos ko day. Sige, himan
Okay.
ako.
Some more questions?
Okay, kayo. Another question, controller?
Kumusta na ako makaya? Ang galingan!
Some more question, controller?
Wala na? No more questions? Time check is already 4:50 in the afternoon. If there are no other questions, I would like to say salamat to all our school heads, to all our master teachers who are with me to answer the different questions of our teachers. I hope tomorrow, as much as possible, especially that we will be having our simulation tomorrow, we will be more focused, and then as much as possible, the questions will be within the range of what has been presented tomorrow para mas maka-deeper pa nga to ang mga learnings. And I would, as what I said kanina, I would be very much happy if the teachers will be the ones that will be cracking their questions to clear some cobwebs relative to this new normal situation that we are having now and relative to the LMS. So, Sir Hosto Villaper, salamat. Ma'am Dina Limos, salamat. Ma'am Letty Agni, Ma'am Susan
Thank you,
Rosopay,
ma'am.
thank you so much for being with us in this open forum because
Kumain
you
na.
really helped a lot to clear the cobwebs from all the different situations that our teachers are having right now. Thank you also to our program host, Therapy, and the beautiful lady. Thank you so much, Ma'am Elesa. And I hope to see you again tomorrow for the third day of our session. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you once again.
Thank you so
Ma'am,
much,
thank you, ma'am.
Ma'am
Bye.
Sarah Passion Kobar, and also our school administrators and our master teachers for answering the questions of our teacher participants. Miss Bam? Ma'am Bam, naka-mute po.
Okay. So, okay. Any last words po from our program coordinator, Sir Bayani Escoton, before we close this afternoon session of our second day training?
Yes, Sir Bayani.
Mayong hapon sa tanan
Bayani?
na nakalitan ko inapil. Nagatanggal ko sa
Ay,
mga atong mga participants. Nagatanggal ko sa mga naa sa
Gani.
open forum. Ni tingala ko na naman ko sa screen. Okay.
Philip,
Last words, kulbaan man sa tanang last words. Mayong hapon sa
last words
tanan.
before
And
closing this program, Sir Ba.
yes, di na nato dugayon
Okay.
mga ma'am and sir. Kita-kits ta ugma, and now we have full knowledge on how our milks are formulated, how they are unpacked, bakit yung ibang competency are retained while some are discarded or rejected and others are revised. So there is a very clear discussion from all the subject areas. So mao na to ang ato ang sundon gid karon sa new normal. And of course, kita-kits na ugma kay ang atong mga simulators excited na pod kaayo. We will have a meeting together with Ma'am Sara later, TWG. O ay Ma'am Sar, katong bitong ingon nimo ma'am nga katong kontakon ay we will ask about sa katong regarding sa SSES. Unya while ginatubag to siya. Yes ma'am, while ginatubag to siya, ako lang pong gipangutana si Ma'am Grace Labasan. Unya she has a reply, SSES and MELCS today identified coordinators gathered at Kumara Central Elementary School to finalize the MELCS for SSES. So we will wait for their finalized MELCS and then she will update us once available na. Karon pa po naka-reply si Ma'am Grace. Sige.
Okay, that's good.
Yes.
That's good, Sir Bayani. Please, do not forget to inform our TWG, including our program host, for today and tomorrow's program host to be around during our meeting, post session meeting this afternoon. And also our school heads, please provide the Google Meet link so that right after the as much as possible, we will just daliun lang na atong meeting.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. So, fellow teachers, school heads, thank you so much for this support for the success of today's webinar. Mga teachers, kita-kits na tomorrow, 8 o'clock a.m. Happy learning and enjoy the rest of the day.
Yes. Thank you
so
so much. Yes,
So
Ma'am
those were
Bam.
the questions, and we do really hope that all your concerns or queries have been answered satisfactorily by our PSTS, school heads, and master teachers. Thank you, teachers, for raising your questions.
All right. Our second day of training is finally coming to end. And before ending this day, do not forget to take our Katami evaluation link, which is currently available on your screen. Controller, please, pakibalik po ng ating Katami link. Ayan po. So that is our Katami link. Sa mga hindi pa po nakapag-evaluate. Ayan. So take a photo and screenshot of the link for your reference.
Okay. Tomorrow po, teachers, is the time for us to part ways temporarily. Early in the morning, we will meet po as one for our plenary session. And after this, it will be followed by the breakout session for key stage, meaning the elementary participants and the secondary participants will have different access link.
Yes, Ma'am Bam. So that's it. Everyone, thank you so much, Sir Bayani Escoton, our program coordinator, for the time and effort you have spent to make this webinar training a successful one. Also, to our technical working group, who are always working with us backstage. On behalf of everyone watching us live right now, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone. And as we bring this training to a close, we once again thank you for allowing us to be here this day. and hope that this training has given you all a much clearer understanding of the learning management system and the most essential learning competencies.
All right, so ladies and gentlemen of Kapalong West District participants, we hope that you found this day's presentation very informative and useful. I will end this session with a quote from a known source that the harder you work for something, the greater you will feel when you achieve it. Basta
Okay?
Danor, the best, basta Kapalong, my K. Thank you for
Okay?
spending time with us today. God bless us all and see you tomorrow.
Okay, basta KapWest the best. So this broadcast will go dark in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Goodbye, everyone.